Hey guys, we're being a little sneaky on today's episode, and throughout you're going to hear some sound Easter eggs. Give us the sound, Mod.
Oh!
When you hear that sound, timestamp it and send a DM to these guys at Maniacs. And if you've got it right, we're going to give you a tongue cutter koozie. So that'll come in the mail. We'll have 4 of them in today's episode. So make sure you're listening.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host,
your boy Mod. Where's my introduction? Where's my line?
Where's the pancakes?
Yeah,
Where's
I told you when I got to the point when it was more work than what it was worth, and I ran out of ideas, that's when the day it would be squashed. So here we are in 2025 where that idea goes back under the rug.
See you later, honeymoon face.
Yeah, jeez.
I was just racking my brain, like, and I'm like, I just wanted to come up with it naturally. So,
well, I'll make a list for you.
Okay,
and then we'll make it seem like
we'll
it's
bring
all
it back out.
Your idea.
So today we have some people that have been here multiple times before, but also been wanting to get back in the studio as the band, and some changes have happened since we talked about coming back into the studio as the band. So please welcome Chantal Roeske and Addison Eilers of Tonguecutter.
Hey, that's us.
Yeah.
Hello.
And you guys have been here before, so if you guys want the grandiose introductions, just go back and listen to some of the other episodes.
Just
before.
scan it in, copy and paste.
Well, it's just kind of funny because I was telling Addison before the show, it's kind of fun because I didn't have to wait 18 months to see him again. That's the beauty of the podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, cool, we got a lot of music and stuff we can talk about, but just being able to catch up and hang out as friends is always nice. And, you know, we actually have a purposeful conversation, but at the same time, we can talk about other things. So,
yeah.
But thank you guys for making the time. For coming over here.
Heck yeah.
I know we just hung out with you a lot last weekend at the Heart in Your Sleeve. We won't dive into that. We'll keep it for next year's episode. But
sounds awesome.
Awesome. Great job on that. Thank you for that. Loving the shirt.
I saw you
Feels
repping.
good. Yeah.
It looks really good.
So,
Joel did such
Looks
a nice.
a little too good on you.
Joel from Dynamite did such a great job on that.
Yeah, for sure. So, but we are here to talk about the riffy woman-led math rock from Muskegon, Michigan, Tonguecutter. Trio out of Muskegon, Michigan, delivering a heavy sound lace with 90s hardcore, Riot, grrrl, and punk influence. And keep her under 3 minutes, they always say. So we are here to kind of talk about what you guys got coming out, but I kind of like to start at the beginning because we've never really dove into that. I know on your episode, Addison, we talked a little bit about kind of how you joined the band. We can reiterate some of that information, but
yeah.
I'd like to, before we get into the new stuff, you want to just take me back and tell me where the idea stemmed from? Because obviously we have a long history.
Yeah.
You've been playing music for ages and a lot of other projects, Ida's Rope, things like that in the meantime since, way back in the Injured days that we played. But yeah, just tell me about how Tonguecutter came about, the idea, and, you getting back out there and getting into the scene with the band.
Well, it is kind of a trip because I've actually owned Tonguecutter.com for about 18 years, which is wild. I'm not kidding. I'm not playing.
Wow.
I've owned that URL. So I actually had that name back in the day, and I wanted it to be like this 2-piece. And what's funny is Tony Metal from Indrid, if you remember, was actually the first person to come and jam with me under that name, but it just kind of fell apart. I had just had Emmett and there wasn't a lot of time. So it never worked out, and it went way on the back burner, like for a very long time, like until, 2.5 or so years ago. And my friend Sai called me up and she was like, hey, I like your riffs. Do you want to jam? And I was like, yeah. And we got together and started laying down, really what is the Tonguecutter sound. And she was like, what do you think about this? And I was like, this is sounding really good. I have this name. I have this URL. I don't know what you think about it. And she was like, yeah, that's it. This is what it is, So she was really instrumental in, helping me to set the tone for something that I had definitely been, brewing up for a really long time. And of course, Saya is no longer with the band, but was really, instrumental in helping to get that original sound down, which is where we reconnected. Ad and I go way back as well. But, he was the very first thought as far as getting into the studio to put that EP down. So we headed right over there. And so, he was totally a part of that. And we put those 5 songs together. And things kind of started to snowball from there. There was label interest and, we've had some switch ups, over that time and some things change. But one of the initial problems was, that we met from labels was like, this is really cool. We really like this, but it's not long enough. And so that's kind of parlays into how, we got going with the full album because it was like, okay, let's go back and re-record these and add more. And, that's where we started heading, past the EP into the full album. So it's kind of cool because now you're in the band, but you were there that whole time through that whole progression.
Okay, so let's talk. Can we talk a little bit about the EP before we start jumping into the forward things?
Sure.
Now, is that when you say keep her under 3 minutes? I mean, I notice all the songs are pretty short. I'm a big fan. I like it. It's not too much. You can consume it a few times, which I did. I'm kind of a fan of the shorter songs personally. Is that something like you're going to continue to stay on and go forward, or?
I think punk sensibility is kind of a core value, but I don't know. We dabble a little now in some of the writing later. Some of it's getting a little longer.
I feel the thing that sticks out is like sometimes one of the things that drew me to Tonguecutter is like when Chantal has a riff, that riff impacts so hard.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, that song was only a minute and a half, but you just consumed like just so many cool riffs in a short amount of time and like just enough to be like, fuck, I got to hear that again.
How does that affect you, Mr. 7.5 minute song over there?
I love this so much because that's how like I came into this. Because like when we did the EP with you and Cy, like I lost my shit. I was like, these are the coolest sounds. Like just for me, it's just like from the engineering standpoint, I was like, I love the way Chantal's guitar sounded. I loved the way that Cy crafted her beats on the drums. And I remember messaging her. I was like, dude, I'm kind of catching a death from above vibe on this. I said, I'm going to lean into this. And she was like, dude, that's so weird. I was just talking to Ben about that. And so that I had a lot of fun with that record. To me personally, sonically, I love the way that record sounds.
It sounds great.
It's huge.
Awesome.
It is like Chantal wanted it to be true to the sound of the band. So it is. That's her guitar. That's Cy's drums. That's her vocals. That's it.
And that's absolutely what it was. I took away from it too. It's kind of grungy, but you got to count it sometimes. But there's some punk rock vibe in there.
Yeah.
I guess you would call it maybe mathy,
Yeah.
but rock and roll at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But what the thing that stuck out to me about it was, well, 2 things. One is, since I played in a band with you before, I'm like, Chantal, this is still Chantal's style. Like, you know what I mean? She hasn't lost that. And that's what
Brent
I love
said
about
that
it.
from If He Dies, He Dies. He's like, these are shanty riffs.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that because I feel like if you kind of listen to me play 20 years later, you're still going to be like, that kind of sounds like what Jay would do, So
100%.
it's like, yeah, you're
have a
staying
signature
true
sound.
to what your sound is. And I absolutely love that. But I feel like, there's some musicianship there where it's kind of like, you kind of, some is a little jilted, some of it's a little county, but your vocal patterns over the top of make it where the average listener doesn't get involved in that county or like that's kind of a weird riff or whatever, because the vocal that you lay is so catchy and so just like in your face and meaningful. Like the way you sing is so meaningful, and I just felt all your words on that. So I just wanted to give you that because
that so much.
I really enjoyed the EP. Like I just thought it was
That's
great.
That's an awesome comment. I love that you said that they don't have to get involved in the mathiness, and those are conversations we've had a lot about really like kind of, stuffing in some mathy stuff without people having to like calculate that in their brains and just experience a groove. So like, it's very awesome to hear that, you can just experience that and have the vocals kind of like guide you through and not have to break down a bunch of math. Not that we're like, bonkers mathy,
Right.
but yeah,
No,
I really appreciate that. I think
I
that's
feel
what
like
we're
that
trying to
just
do.
slips out of you naturally. Honestly, because I was like, I don't know what that is. I was like, this feels right here.
Yeah.
And then like I didn't realize how crazy the riffs were until we were working with, getting Derek up to speed, and he's just like, and that's that's 7. Did you hit that 10 times? Okay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, dude, it's just 2 notes. I just kept being a jackass.
Yeah.
We'll do patterns a lot,
It's just
too.
the one note.
Yeah.
I think Jay makes a really good point because as I was listening to it, I knew to expect the mathiness, or let's see how like jilted it is a good term for it but it didn't feel that way. As I was riding down, I was like, okay, we're getting a little mathy, but as soon as the vocals came in, I stopped even like paying attention to the beat so much. It just kind of flowed naturally. Like the vocal just carried it. So you didn't have to worry about the beat. You're just like, oh, I'm just listening to this vocal melody. It's really nice. I like it. And as Jay said and pointed out, like the lyrics, you could understand them. I didn't have to read them. I just wanted to make sure I was hearing you correctly, so I'd had them on the screen as well, but I'm driving. Drive peak. But they're really important too. I think you make some compelling lyrics for everyone to listen to and to consider as well.
Thank you.
So,
I really appreciate that. I try to be thoughtful. The other thing with Tonguecutter was like, let me not sing too much. Let it breathe.
Yeah.
I did want to say some things, but I did want it to be accessible. I didn't want it to be obtuse for the sake of being obtuse
Right.
or like too over the top or to like sort of suffocate what was happening in the music,
Right.
So I really appreciate that they're hitting hard, especially because I kind of tried to pepper them in. Some of that is just wanting the music to breathe. And then some of it is like, I'm going to give myself a rock out break here because I know I'm going to want to bang my freaking head and I don't want to be tied to the mic. So it's all logistical too.
Well,
but
they're only 3-minute songs at the most. You got 2:49. So on with respect to Tupperware Party, the EP, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to have a long story in there.
yeah,
I noticed
for sure. It's a short
some
story.
of them shorter than others. I don't know just the first two, just like maybe one segment and then another segment, and that was it. And I was like, but those lines hit hard enough. Like what you're saying, that's all it needs to be said. Say it 10 times over. Really drive the point home. That's fine. And also, when you're a musician and a vocalist, you don't want to sit here and have all these different lines to remember.
Yeah.
You're playing an instrument. So, like, I think that's important for vocalists to consider, too. If you just have one line that really hits, it's okay to repeat it 4 times in a row. Really, people will appreciate it and they'll sing it back to you.
Seriously, when I do my solo stuff, like with Ida's Road, people will be like, oh, what's this song about? And I'm like, oh, this song is about entomology and how, bugs have eaten, matriarchs and patriarchs for centuries. It's like all complicated. It's like, this song's about DNA replication. And I'm being legitimate. Like, that's true. There's so many words in there and it's so wordy and it's a little bit more lofty. Yeah, there's no time for that.
Right.
I wasn't worried about repeating certain lyrics or
Right.
giving things space to breathe. So for sure, it's okay to repeat.
Yeah.
I really tried to like wrap my brain around that because even coming from Indrid, it was like, well, maybe this should be more complicated. Maybe there should be another riff in here. Maybe we should try to shoehorn in something. And letting stuff breathe and repeating and being a little bit more simplified was definitely a mantra.
That's one thing that we always preach on the show, and I believe that just probably comes from us witnessing your maturation also as like, hey, I'm putting this out in the world. It doesn't have to be so artsy all the time. Maybe I just have to say what I have to say and get it across,
Right.
and then, I mean, super kudos too, because I can understand your vocals do not go with the rhythms, and the rhythms can
Right.
be kind of weird and
Thank you.
I don't want to say jilted because they're not, but they are to a normal person that plays guitar. They're like, you know what I mean? But
Right.
you're singing this pattern that doesn't even go with that, and I'm just like, my mind's blown. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
way more complicated than anything I could ever do. I just play with the notes I can fucking sing over, so whatever.
Thank you. I tried not to dial it in Thurston Moore style. I really like to sing different patterns over the top. It is kind of challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
I did push myself there a little bit, and it's funny because like there's a lot of like super like technical like mathy musicians who would listen to our stuff and be like, psh, that's not that complicated. Well, it really isn't at the end of the day, but like you're right though that singing something different over the top is challenging. So that part's been a little challenging for me from time to time. I really enjoy it though. And it ends up, I think I really appreciate that you said it ended up flowing because I feel that when we're playing, like it gets to be a
Yeah.
groove and
Yeah, because you can get in the weeds, especially, I mean, you're a musician's musician. That's the thing. It's like, how can I push myself? You are too. It's like, how can we keep pushing ourselves? But sometimes you just need to know that you can do that and maybe sprinkle that in there. But that's just the frosting on the cake, right? That can't be all of what it is, and then it just becomes too much. Then you're only playing for musicians.
right.
And that's what I
Definitely.
liked about it, where it was like there's something for musicians in there, but there's also just something for people that can just jam it. And I think that's
Yeah.
important if you're trying to have people really listen to your music. Let's be
Yes.
honest. You know what I mean?
So it
Go
just
ahead.
made me think of this. So like when
Yeah.
we just played at Skeletones, and like the thing that was really cool, there's so many younger kids out to the show, which I thought was incredible. I was like, holy cow! But then just to like look out at the crowd and see all these younger kids like getting into it, like they could latch on to the material.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I think is really cool, is it's very accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, that fucking rips.
Yep.
and it's like you don't even know you're getting mathed at. Where it's just like you're just like, oh
Yeah.
fuck yeah,
Yep.
you know. And it's especially younger people to introduce them to like this whole world of music where it's like no, this is like
Yeah.
here's this world, come on into it, you
Yeah.
know.
And I guess it would be a little different too if like your guitar was like super distorted and you're really trying to get after it. But I
Right.
like how the distortion. Some of that obviously is the sound that you guys created together in the studio. I'm sure you had an amp sound, but we'll talk.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I know we got more stuff to talk about. But I did want to make sure that we highlighted this EP because it's something that we could consume, right?
Yeah.
And but you know the guitar it's there so you can hear all the notes. It's not overly distorted. You know, like everything fits in its place, and I just thought it was really good. I just like to do just a quick breakdown. Tupperware party, that thing where you yell "bitter man" or "a better man," "bitter man,"
Bitter man,
yeah.
yeah.
And you're like "bitter man," and it goes on, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I would be passing out. So that was cool. Really stuck in my
I
head.
think there's
Zero
a-
movie magic there. That was
Yeah.
all one
Just
breath
one-
that she did.
yeah, I
that was
figured.
real.
There
I
might be
figured.
some longer screams in the new
Yeah.
in the new record. I think there's
Oh,
some longer
man.
ones.
I
Sure.
can't
I don't know.
remember.
I could go longer, but you know that's luckily developed from probably a lot of singing, but also you know diaphragm breath work, playing flute and stuff like that. I got some diaphragm muscle in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard it, and that was awesome because that
Thank
was one of
you.
those things that Nick basically alluded to, whereas you didn't have to make it overly complicated, but you said what you had to say, and it was impactful on us. So when you put the song away, you still got something to catch on to, and that's always important to me, you know.
Thank
So,
you. Appreciate
Yarn
that.
Horse, what a fun song, but that's to me, the ability to sing over the rhythms on that song really stuck out to me. Like, talk about like patting your head, rubbing your belly, shit. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, this is intense. Like, and not everybody would probably catch that. Like a casual wouldn't catch that, right? That'd just be, oh, they're singing over the guitar playing. But it's
Yeah.
like if you really knew what she was doing, like that's some serious practice and some serious skill. So
Thank you. It's funny because I don't always think about it. That one came pretty natural, but I should have brought the yarn horse in here because it's like this big yarn horse picture that was the catalyst for that. When we started writing that song, and it felt like really gallopy, and it was all about like bad dreams. You know, when you're like, you know, moving in slow motion in dreams, and you're like, roar, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't run and stuff. So it was all about having a nightmare. But it had like this gallopy sound to it, you know. But I appreciate what you're saying about the singing over the top because, yeah, I did try to find a lot of contrasting. I didn't want to sing the riff, you know,
Right.
so tried to make that a little bit different. And that one actually has pretty minimal words. Well, actually, no, I guess it's got a couple verses. It's a little bit more classic, maybe. There's not always a lot of lyrics to be found.
and then RATAP, right?
Yes.
The vocal harmonies on that was real. Those were really cool on that
Thank
one.
you.
Those really stuck out to me, and there was some really nice drum work in there. So that was the first drummer on this EP, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
She did a great job, man.
Solid drummer.
Yeah, like
very
that-
unique.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
unique style.
I just
really
love-
set a tone.
Go
Cody
ahead, buddy.
Vickers, like when that was released, and he just goes, he's like, "Is she a guitar player?" I was like, "Yeah, Cy Wales on guitar." He's like, it's very guitar-y feeling the
Yeah.
way that she would put drum parts together,
Yeah.
but it just has like it's very impactful, like the way like she would pepper toms in. I was like, I thought it was just really neat because it kind of set her guitar up.
Yeah. And,
You
and
know.
I felt in that song kind of before it, there's almost like this bridge where it dies down a little bit, where the vocals come in again, and it's like a vocal harmony, but it's a little bit different, more dynamic feel in that part.
Yeah.
But before you guys go into it, you kind of go into this guitar drum break type thing after, and that just really stuck out. I was like, that was super cool. And so she did a great job on that. And then, you know, just the last two tracks, I kind of put them together. I just thought it was just absolutely like great songs, but
Thank you.
with a message, but also just like good punk rock. And you know, I'm not a big punk fan, but to me there was some punk feel in there. Like I really felt that shining through on, you know, Bitch Ass Energy, Big Old Tree. They kind of, to me, they were kind of one. But great job with the EP. That came out on August 4th, 2023, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
You recorded it,
Yep.
mixed it.
And then Blake from Bronson Arm mastered it.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
All right.
Yeah, awesome. Where did you record that at? Your place?
At,
when you
at the
had your-
house. When I
Okay.
had the studio at the house, we did it there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Ask you about this. Special thanks to Carmen Greer for providing space for miscreant musicians. Is that a
Yeah,
little
gotta give
shout
Carmen.
out?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Actually, he housed them teeth for like 7 years at his shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then Cy and I, our practice spot was there.
Okay.
So we really we were like right next to Hot Rods, you know. It's like Come home smelling like gas and oil. Didn't have a practice jam spot, so totally just wanted to thank him for housing us because wouldn't have been possible without.
Nice.
And obviously, Carmen and I many moons ago used to be together, and we have a son together, and we always ran a house venue, and he always was in bands. Drummer of Indrid. And I think over the years when he stopped playing, that was kind of like his contribution to the scene was like he was housing people and doing stuff. So he's been supporting all these years, even though he hasn't been out there. And I know he's appreciated for that.
Well, that's still pretty cool. That's especially
Absolutely.
especially if you were together and you were able to set your differences aside, and he still said, hey, hey, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
still use the place. I'm like,
100%.
shout out to him for sure.
We have
That's cool.
been super, super cool co-parents, and he's been there for me a lot and vice versa. And he really came through for Ben, my husband, with
Nice.
MT Space, and he was really appreciated. I think, at one point we even talked about having some shows there, but he's moved to a different spot now. So none of us are there anymore. But yeah, that was really rad that he did that. We appreciated it.
Hell yeah, super cool. All right, well, is there anything else that you guys want to say about the EP before we move on?
It's so fucking sick. Like it was one of those moments to where when she hit me up and she's like, "Hey, I've got this hardcore band." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "I got a couple songs." I was like, "All right, cool." And so she came in. I had no idea what to expect, and I just it was one of those moments I was like, "Oh fuck, this is so sick." And then to just because to track it, I think I just had you plugged into the computer with an amp sim to play along with Psy.
Yeah.
And then I remember that session was plagued with my console was giving me issues. Like we came over, we
Yeah.
started, and then my console wasn't working, and then I was like, all right, I borrowed a power supply from somebody else.
Yeah.
And then you guys came over that day after I just tracked all of Slugchild with that power supply. And then I was like, cool, everything's good. You guys came over again. And then it took a dump and I had to repair it again. I ended up ordering an aftermarket power supply from the UK and then we
It was
finally
crazy.
got
There's
it was
stuff
nuts.
everywhere.
It was just, and then finally we got it all together. But I was like I had that EP right there was one of those moments where I was just like, this is fucking sick. And I was just a fangirl right out of the gate.
Nice.
And then also it's immediate bond just because of the whole 2-person band thing. I was just like, I have a soft spot for that. And I was like, I just had so much fun with that record, period. And that's why I'm here. It's I'm like, this is sick,
That's awesome.
So familiar with the band Quicksand at all?
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
love Quicksand.
Would it be fair to say that's a little bit of a comparison there? That post grunge rock kind of heavy.
It's interesting.
Didn't I say that when we were tracking?
Yeah, we have gotten that before. And
Okay, sweet.
And I totally dig Quicksand. My husband is even more of a fan. And when I have gotten that reference multiple times, I'm like,
Awesome.
you hear stuff and people say that. And it's like,
I'm just glad I'm not making shit up.
No,
It's like,
no.
I'm listening to it. I'm like, please tell me they know Quicksand because this is giving me some of that vibe where it's like
multiple times. That's
Yeah.
thrice now, I think.
Yeah.
You, and I can't remember who the
Good.
other person was. Yeah.
good
which is
band,
really-
and man, I'm gonna go home and listen to some and yours. I'm gonna put it in a mix.
They have a new single out, too.
Do they?
Yeah. They do.
Awesome, good
You
to
got to
know.
prepare yourself. Before I came here today, I wanted to be extra weird. So I listened to 2 whole Mr. Bungle albums.
Nice.
Yeah, that's getting weird with it.
Yeah.
Almost makes me want to talk about my dream last night.
Mr. Bungle. Yeah, so I mean, I guess leading into what we're about to talk about, the new stuff that's about to come out. The idea was to re-record the EP then, right? Now, this is correct, right? Because I
Yeah.
wanted to clarify this. So it's the EP, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 more songs, basically, right? Because you said it was 11
Yeah.
songs,
Yeah.
Total?
Okay, yep.
right?
Mhm.
So what was the idea then re-recording the EP? And did you feel like that might have lost some of its magic? Because sometimes you're in the studio, right, and you capture a certain vocal harmony or a certain guitar tone, and you're just like, that was magic.
Yeah.
There's always this thing where, maybe we can do it better, but, what was the decision to re-record the 5 EP songs?
The logistics behind it I'll talk about. Differences I'll pass over to Addison because that was really important to him when we got into the studio because he was definitely like, let's do this different. Let's let that sit and let's try something different. We didn't go crazy different with those tunes that got re-recorded, but our approach was different. There were some tweaks. We didn't do the same things. We didn't lay the same harmonies. we did let that breathe on its own. As far as going in to record these new songs, like I was saying, like it was really amazing. These opportunities popped up with Learning Curve, and it was like, okay, Reiner, head of Learning Curve really digs this, but he's like, what do you want to do with this? Because it's like the playtime on it's like, 19 minutes. And he was like, I really want to put this out, but I'm thinking like more length. What can we do? And I'm like, okay. At the time, I knew that we had written like 5 new songs. And I was like, what if and he's like, how about, you do those and you put them together with the old EP and we'll re-release that. And I was like, I thought that was awesome that he would be willing to do that. And then there was also a part of me that's like, this isn't going to jive because now we're a 3-piece and there's all these counter melodies and, we've got bass, like there's more
yeah.
here. And I literally called Addison on my way home and he was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And I think you like finished my words because I was like, okay, so we need to record more songs. And he's like, and go back and like re-record the others and put this together. And I was like, yeah. So we knew right off the bat that, we didn't want to put together that session and then, some with a 3-piece because there was going to be like this conjointed thing. And so it was like, okay, let's go back and do this. And of course, when I pitched that, to Reiner and said, well, what about if we do this? He was like, bingo, bango. That sounds awesome. Let's put it out. And when I got that green light, like I was all like sweaty palms, like I said, like calling Addison, I'm like, man, I think we're getting signed. We need to put out this whole record. And he was like, let's do this, And then we started. But that process was interesting. I don't know if you want to take it from there as far as like putting things together. And
So, I mean, just talking like, like sonic space, with just Cy and Chantal's, just the drums and the guitar, I could give the drums a lot more weight because I wasn't looking, because that low end wasn't being occupied by bass guitar. So I could like lean into that with like the drums, and then Chantal's guitar, I was able to like open that up and just kind of give it that growl in the low end that is typically occupied by bass. So when we came in and retract stuff, we kind of streamlined it and did it a little more traditionally to where, because Chantal plays 2 amps stacked, we just split the signal into 2 amps, a crunchier tone from her 5150, and then live she uses her Fender as like just basically the balls amp, just gives it a purr. And so we used one of my amps in the studio to kind of like recreate that sound. So instead of doing the actual live split, we just basically recorded that tone twice with, I would just do a couple of tweaks along the way and then just double tracked her guitar. And then I just used that space underneath so I could have some room for bass so that way it could fill the sound up a little bit differently. So we approached a little more traditionally in that sense.
Cool.
And then, and that was session number 1 because there was two sessions. Because when you were a 3-piece, you came in and we did 7 songs because you had 2 new ones plus the EP. So we did 7 at my studio at the house. And then we had the conversation about, hey, we need to do this full length. And I was like, I didn't have the studio anymore. That's when I started working out of Cold War.
Okay.
And so I was like, we can do this, because Chantal was like, how are we going to make them sound the same?
Right.
that was the challenge.
Yeah, that always is the challenge.
So then
you
I was
did
like,
such a good job, dude.
It's wild. Like I listened back to it and it's just like, I can't remember which songs were where.
Nobody can tell. It's incredible.
And so it's like, Cam tracked on my Gretsch drums. So I was like, well, I got to still have those. We'll bring those in. I use the same mics, that I have like my standard recipe. I look back at the track. I was like, okay, I did this, and this.
Yeah.
We use the same amps.
Yeah.
And then like what was cool was when the stuff we tracked at Rick's Space, because I remember when I sent it over to you and I was like, this is either really great or really shitty. And you're like, this sounds nuts.
There was so much like natural, like electric sound.
Yeah.
By the way, the missing piece that we didn't mention here is that in between the first EP, when we became a 3-piece, we went back and we had recorded a 5-song EP with Addison that we were going to release.
Okay.
That never saw the light of day because of getting signed and everything and putting out a full length. It ended up getting all rolled into one.
Oh, okay.
So we had essentially 2 projects that we were going to put together with the re-recording of the EP stuff. So that was like a little bit of a missing piece. I forgot to mention that we had already done this session. So that's what he's referring to when we tracked at his house and then at Cold War. But like,
and then you guys had tweaked the songs, like Rat Tap has the whole, razzle dazzle to it. And then when we merged, because when I mixed the stuff we did at Cold War tracked there, and I was just like, this has a sound and feel. And then I actually went back because we had the other 7 were already mixed. Blake had already mastered them. And I went back and I was like, I really like the way the guitars, the drums, and vocals all sound on this. So I basically went back and I kind of compared some of the things that I did. And then I just kind of took the things I did on the new mix, and I was just like, all right, do here, here, here. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And then we got something, I sent it over to her, and like I remember she said, yeah, me and Ben listened to it, and we're like, these sound like they were recorded at the same time.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And then Blake just brought it home and just like was that glue to bridge the gap. But
And for me, like the first time that I heard the whole thing, like pretty much finished, I was telling Addison, I was like down in my laundry room with like a basket of laundry, and I was like in my laundry room crying. I'm like, this is what I wanted.
Happy tears.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, it made me feel emo because I just have not been able to accomplish like a full length, especially of like what I've written on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pretty intense feeling to like hear it come together and have it be so like flawlessly combo. I like you said, I could not tell what
Yeah.
had changed.
Well,
other thing, go ahead.
I was going to say 2 things real quick. Is one, I feel like I share that emotion because when Jay finally kicked over the Infinite Design stuff to me from the last release that we did, it was like, that's exactly what I wanted. So thank you. I was like just like in my feels. I was like, this is fucking perfect.
It makes you emotional. I
Yeah.
legit had
Like-
tears. I was like,
I was
I
just
think he was just crying because it took us 5 fucking years to get it done.
that too. I was like, it's finally here. This fucking labor took forever.
oh
Um,
man, know that feeling.
The second thing is, and having just listened to Bronson Arm, 8 days ago, I was feeling like there was somewhat of a similarity in the tone, maybe even the approach, because 2-piece, right? With the guitar tones, I was like, whether no treble, all bass, all mid or something, because it sounds like a lot coming out of the horn. Is that still the same sound you're going to have now with the bass on the full length? Is that guitar tone basically the same? I mean, or
I think
did you
so.
have
I
to
like
Yeah.
to really crush my mids. I mean, I think everything is really similar, except for you
It's-
made it a unique sonic beast altogether. but
Yeah, it still sounds like you. And then like
we just had to make more space for bass,
Yeah, did
true,
you
yeah.
like you
did
said.
you move the bass to like a higher register then, like more treble in it so that it's contrasts, or
Smoother in the mid range, because when I started actually playing in the band and I was in the room with Chantal's guitar, I started looking for the pockets to where I needed to fill in, and then I found like there was some holes in the upper mids because it's like, I don't know, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, I need to fill this up. But like tracking, one of my favorite amps to use is like a Sardano, because I feel like the dirt sound on a Sardano blends in really well
okay?
with heavy guitar, and then it also has a good identity. And so I started with a rig in the Helix when we were playing together, and I was blending 2 amps together, a Sun Coliseum and a Sardano, and then actually found the real live amp of what I was modeling. I ended up buying it.
Nice.
And then, but that's kind of like, because your tone is like, the bass is actually more mid forward.
Okay.
Like I'm leaning into like the basically the bark on the guitar, because her guitar is just a little bit brighter in like the 3 to 5K area,
Right.
and that's like the bass. I'm like leaning into like the 1K where it just has that nose on it,
Yeah, okay.
Right.
and then that kind of sits right around her
Which
guitar.
is a good balance because I like totally scoop my mids out and then
That's
so
why.
it's
That's when
really
I was
just-
like, oh,
Nice.
because I was just going through hitting all the. That's one thing I love about the Sun. It just like has all the most usable frequencies, and I was just like, oh wow, okay, that fills out your guitar really nice there. And then I was like, oh, that gives me enough of an identity as well, to where it's just like, I'm not. The last thing I wanted to do, because I told Chantal, is like, I'm not here to get in your way. I'm here to make your guitar sound heavier and bigger.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
that is what's
bass.
really cool about having Addison in the band though, because now like like as a guitarist, you're like, I have my sound. I know what I like this EQ'd like.
Right.
And not saying that that's inherently selfish, because I think most of us are like that with our rigs, right?
Sure.
But I appreciate you as an engineer, because like at practice, there are times when Addison will be like, I need you to cut the bass on that a little bit because you got to make some space for me here. And now like as a whole picture, I'm like, yeah, I totally see what you're like crafting here.
Mm.
We can't be like battling each other for the same like space.
Yeah.
That didn't always make sense to me in my musicianship forever, because even though I understand the basics of sound, you kind of go into it a little bit selfish maybe.
Yeah.
You're like, this is my rig, this is what it sounds like, this is what I like my EQ like. So I appreciate that about you because you're like, this has to, fit in here and you're going to have to adjust for me here. And then it sounds so much better,
I remember specifically that moment. It was the palm chugs. And I was like, yes, we need a little less 100 in there.
Yeah.
And like, I just remember specifically like playing Skeletones was my first time with the band. Like we actually had like a PA system underneath our belt. And I was like, and the stage sound that we had between our instruments, I was like, oh, this is lovely. It just sounded like one big, tough sound.
Nice. Well, just to be perfectly clear, because I do want to make sure we cover all things Tonguecutter, and you and I talked about this a little bit. So we do the EP.
Yeah.
Right? As a 2-piece.
Yes.
And then Derek Eagle joins the band.
Exactly.
As a bass player, right?
Yep.
You three then go record 7 songs with Addison?
In a matter of, well, actually, we recorded 5 new songs that we had written together as an EP, and then we went back and re-recorded the EP songs, a few of them, not all of them. We chose some.
I have the exact timeline.
All Derek?
April,
yes,
we did
that was all with Derek Eagle.
2-piece. November, we did Cam Paladin, Derek Eagle, Chantal. We did the first chunk of songs, then we came back, and then the following April is when we did.
Yeah.
Oh,
and when we
okay.
came
so it's
back,
like-
we did some of the EP, and we did a couple new tunes that we
Okay.
had.
All right.
So it was really, it was a weird time.
It's kind of like a mix-up of everything that you
Right.
had, and then you cohesively got it sounding good. Then you joined the band.
Yep.
Correct.
So all the bass tracks on all this new stuff is
Derek.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we're clear with that. And,
Yes.
and we are also putting on display Derek's contribution to the band. Thank you, Derek, for
Absolutely.
doing
He's
what he did.
Super talented guy, awesome at writing counter melodies, very, very creative. And he's like definitely, well known in the Muskegon community, I think, for those talents. He's a melody guy.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the most awesome things he brought to the table. So it was very enriched in that way for sure.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely.
So, just to make sure that the listeners we're not skipping around too much here. I kind of like to go in order just so we know where we're at.
Thanks, Dan.
But hey, that's why I sit here, son.
That's why I have the comfy chair.
Yeah, I would spend more time here. That's why I got this one.
Yeah.
But, okay, cool. So now, how are you approaching the bass on these songs? Are you putting your own ideas on these now that you're playing them live and feeling them out? Like you're taking what he laid as a foundation, which is also nice because I think you alluded to this when you were on the show last time. You could solo his bass tracks out and make sure you're basically got all of the parts that he had already got done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, so like coming from the land of like 2-piece zone, where it's like if there is a spot where it feels empty, it's just like, I need to adjust the riff so it always feels big, right? Because like you don't have a bass player to fill the sound. So my natural things was like having it recorded, you can always make adjustments to make everything sound big. But when you're in the practice space and you're actually feeling like, if I play these notes or if I move to that next string up, the intensity of the sound minimizes. So I asked Chantal, I'm like, because I wanted to make sure, because like in my mind, I was like, you have this figured out. I'm here to be, value add to the band.
Right.
So I was like, can I tweak? She's like, go for it. And then I'll be like, all right, so I want to just like almost like caveman a couple of spots so that sounds huge. And then like simplifying things, because like, it's like I feel like as another bass player, it's like our allegiance is to making this thing sound as big as possible.
Sure.
And filling those voids. So I would tweak stuff. And so absolutely I have made things my own to make sure that the band sounds big, that I'm able to dynamically push the material like we would in mixing, where it's like, well, we can automate that to bump. But then it's just like between me and the drummer, we need to make sure that her next riff is getting that push over the top. And so like those little things, and it's like I feel like I kind of have free reign in the low end zone where it's just like, we're going to hit this here. And then she'll speak up and she's just like, that doesn't feel right. I was like, okay, that feels better. I'm like, actually, you need to move that note up a half step. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. Stuff like that.
Don't let him fool you, though. Addison came in and just completely like killed it automatically. It took him no time to adjust. He had it down. And the other thing that's cool about you is like, I know you're saying like, supporting sonically, but Addison is also very much like an operations person. We're both like very high level thinkers.
We're nerds.
We're total nerds. I'm a little bit more of like the visionary personality where, I'll think of like the big ideas or the music things. And Addison's very visionary too, but more like in an operational and engineering kind of way, even though you're very creative musically too. Like one of the awesome things about Ad has been like when he came in, he was like, all right, I want to overhaul the whole way that we're like loading in, loading out, the way that we're doing things, which was awesome. And for me, like, especially like playing shows and stuff, he's like, I've got, all this crazy, like, I've got all these cards, I've got all these plans on how I want to load things in the trailer. You don't touch the equipment, you go over to the merch table. And I'm like, I'm getting treated like a princess. This never
Dude,
happened
divide
before.
and conquer. That's
Yeah.
the way Paul and I
Seriously.
had to do it. Yeah.
Which has been amazing because we're already like more efficient, which makes me feel great about like going out on the road and like doing things because it's like, okay, the system really needed a tweak. So I think that you're awesome with that kind of stuff too. Like, coming
So-
in and
Addison, you've got the stage plot and the trailer plot. Like, where every little piece of gear goes
It-
in the trailer.
squares then circles.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, dude, ask Paul. And like, because like, especially when you're out on the road, you have to account for everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, I could tell you, it's like, I know where everything sits in the trailer.
Awesome.
And then that way I know when we're loaded out, I can look in the trailer and I can tell if something's missing.
Yeah.
And like that was something that Paul and we learned and refined when we were out on the road with Tiny Tree. And so
Yeah.
I carried a lot of those things that I learned right over into this. And then over that time, I also just picked up the tools to make all those things easier to where I'm just like, and there's also another thing too, is I think is critical is being of the mindsets, like it's not an individual thing. It's like we have to think in a group mindset where it's like Chantal feels guilty that she's not moving gear, but I was like, no,
I've never gotten out of that before in the
you
past.
need to
so.
sell merchandise.
Yeah.
You are the face of the band. You
Right.
need to connect with the fans. You need to
Yeah.
make sure that the band is generating revenue so we can continue doing
Yeah,
this.
that's true.
These things are critical
Yeah.
for just the success of the band. And that's what Paul and I did. Like there would be times where Paul wouldn't touch a single thing and I would get everything in the trailer and he's just like, oh, hey, by the way, this is how much we made, and I squeaked another couple of bucks out of the promoter, and he bought us a hotel room. And I was like,
Sweet.
he's a ham, and
Yeah.
like Chantal is the same way. So I'm just like,
We already
Tuck
doubled our
pride to the
sales
side,
with this
yeah.
method.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just like so much more efficient for the greater
Yeah.
good of the band. We
Yeah.
can cover so much more ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus you're not tripping over each other trying to get in and out of the
Yeah.
trailer. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did going into Hard on Your Sleeve to the band. We told Adam, we're like, hey, dude, you need to get rid of that other kick drum. We're sick of carrying that thing all the time. Get a
Right.
double kick. And then I was like, I'm going to take these two cymbals. Larry, you take these two cymbals. And Ian, you take these two cymbals, and those are your cymbals you're responsible for. That way, when we're loading in stuff, we're not in people's way. You know what you're loading on stage. You're responsible for those
Yeah.
two things,
Yep.
and then getting off the stage as well, because that's so
Yeah.
important. We've never really had an issue with that. We've had some technical issues lately with because we're using triggers, but now we're not. But that was the whole thing too, is just like
Yeah.
trying to become more efficient
Yeah.
and know that, hey, if you only got a certain amount of time to play, like get your stuff on stage, get it off
Right.
stage, especially
Yep.
if, Adam unfortunately has a lot of drums and shit, so it's like we really have to be mindful
Yeah,
of
you
our
guys
time
did a
and
great
who's
job.
grabbing
You sounded
what,
awesome too,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thank you very much.
Did you guys see
It was
that
fun.
meme rolling around where they were like, if Kendrick Lamar's entire Super Bowl halftime show can get torn down in 10 minutes, so can your band.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
There's so much
I love
truth
that.
in that, and that's like I think just another thing of just being like seasoned musicians is like just
Yeah.
learning like show day etiquette.
Yeah.
Where it's like you had your time on stage.
Yeah.
Now it's the next person's
Yep.
turn to have their
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we were ever bad at
Yeah.
that, but I just like getting a system down
Yeah,
and being
thinking
like
it out.
each person is
Yeah.
responsible for
Yeah.
something.
Makes a
So
big
Adam's
difference.
not just standing there. What do I grab? It's my drums, but I'm just getting
Yeah.
everything out of there.
Yeah.
That we're like, dude, I got these two cymbals for you. He don't
Yeah.
have to worry about. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're just making
Yeah.
it easier for everybody having some kind of system down. You
Yeah,
know?
It's
and
so
it's-
chaotic at the end of a
Exactly.
show. You're like, oh shit, what do I need to grab
And,
first?
and nothing
Very
goes
chaotic.
exactly
Yeah.
how you think it's going to go
Right.
either. You might slip and fall in the ice or.
Oh my
Yikes.
gosh. When you said that, for some reason, I thought you were going to say slip and fall on stage. Do you remember how the old Blue Note stage used to buckle together?
Oh yeah.
So one time when Indrid was playing, we vibrated it loose, and it like an earthquake, it split, and one of my legs went down.
Oh.
And it was like during a really heavy song, and I was completely uninjured, amazingly, but I was up to my hip, and I just finished the song.
Jesus.
So I was like, let's do this.
Damn.
But you never know what's coming your way.
Yeah.
And it's a piece of the pie too, like all the logistical stuff. I think people get into music and, of course you're writing and you're trying to be creative and that the focus is there first. But then you have like, the piece of operational on and off the stage. And then you have like the promotional stuff, and then you have like maybe the experience of the audience that you're not thinking about in your stage show, and it's really nice to be able to focus on all those pieces and refine, no
Right.
matter how long you've been at it.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
I was going to say, with respect to like loading in, it's not just about getting your gear in the building. It's about getting it out of the cases, out of the shells, and ready to go on stage. You
Yep.
don't just load in and throw it in the corner.
Yeah.
Like at some point, I mean, maybe you got 3 hours before you need to crack things open, but
Yeah.
leading up to that time, you want to be ready. Like when that band's on stage and you go up after them, that's when you should have everything out, sitting on the stands, partially set up and connect drum kit kind of put together in big chunks. Everything, all the chords are accounted for. You're basically, your head's all dialed in and you're hooked up, and you just got to wheel it over with the cab and get your stuff on the stage. You want to be as ready as possible so that when you start putting equipment on the stage, you're ready to play and maximize your set time.
Yep, exactly.
Definitely.
And not start cracking things open at the last second, because then you're going to be behind the 8 ball immediately.
It just helps with it's like you're more relaxed when you're playing. You're just like, oh, that wasn't stressful.
Yeah. We've talked about that many times on the show too, because like sometimes you get that stage energy, and that's already an energy as it is. But partially of that extra energy is like, well, I hope I get my stuff on stage and it works right, and I got to get it up there real quick, and we got to plug in, and I hope Adam's got all his stuff ready, and I hope that Jeff's guitar's working, and I hope
and worrying about patch cords going bad, that's what gives you the poop feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not excitement. You're like, oh my god.
It's one part energy, one part anxiety.
Yeah, exactly.
It
You got to
is,
figure out
totally.
how to harness that and still play good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
All right, so before we move on to the reason really why we're here to kind of push this show today, I mean, obviously you guys are the reason, but we want to talk about the new recording. But I got 2 questions for you. So the name Tonguecutter, you've had it for 18 years. Why is that something that was so dear to you and something you've had for so long?
Yeah, this is one that I was keen on too. I didn't know you were going to ask this one,
Yeah.
but I told my wife, I was like, Tonguecutter is kind of hard to say. Like, it hurts my mouth to say Tonguecutter for the obvious reason. I was like, I got to know what is behind this.
Yeah,
so please, Chantal.
Well, that parlays right into it, because literally, super simply put, it is about saying things that are hard to say.
Awesome.
So that was all about, and for me, of
like
course,
that.
that comes down to, a lot of my personal experience, especially as a woman, but anyone can relate to that. And, how it can feel painful to say the things that need to be said. So
I like that.
that was,
me too.
the feeling behind it for sure. It was about being able to speak up.
My interpretation was something of looking at it as a man from a woman's point of view, was maybe like you felt like your tongue had been cut out of your mouth at times in society because you're not able to have the voice in today's society. Men are telling you what to do with your bodies. Men are telling you what you can have medically or not have medically.
And that's literally exactly it,
Awesome.
Parlaying into oppression and saying the things that are hard to say or impossible to say or you've been prevented from saying. So you're completely on the right track,
Good.
and that is exactly it.
I was
It's all
like,
those things.
as well as I know Chantal, as well as I don't know you, I still was thinking, well, I've had conversations with her. I think this is where she's coming from, but I still...
And it's funny because I know like people will picture like these like cornball images with like somebody like slicing open the tongue and the blood, and it means something a little deeper for me, but we had a very positive reception to the name though.
Yeah, it's cool.
In
I
fact,
love it.
your brother was one of the first people to message me and be like, I love the name. So
I didn't realize
like,
it had such a deep meaning. I was like, that's just fucking heavy.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
the-
all I thought. I was like, it's so fucking heavy.
It's
That's
been
fucking
half and
great.
half, so yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, then a little bit, can you just tell me about the EP name then? Like the Tupperware Party, what does that signify? I was just kind of wondering because I get the song and like kind of what you're saying in the song,
Yeah. So the idea of the Tupperware Party, we never got to shoot a video for that one. And it was essentially an idea, which maybe will come to fruition at some point, but about, sort of the absurdity of women gathering in spaces without saying those things.
Right.
So it was like, yeah, let's get together and, have this big Tupperware party, and we're just going to not speak about all the stuff that's going on.
Right.
like
and-
the important things.
Right. The important things or, maybe really messed up things that are happening. And it was just, kind of poking fun at the idea that, while there's like so many messed up things going, we're over here burping Tupperware in like groups, So it was kind of poking fun at that idea.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's kind of, I pictured women sitting around and sort of gossiping about, something like messed up that was going down. And so yeah, that's the whole idea behind that, and kind of a fun nod to like days of past where, I mean, not fun. I guess it's not really that fun, but a little bit of a campy reference, I guess you could say.
I felt like it was either satirical or, pardon the pun, but tongue in cheek.
Yeah, for sure.
I was seeing like, yeah, this not something Chantal would do. She would not have a Tupperware party,
Right.
But, so like, there's definitely like an irony to it here. Like, oh, we're just sitting around and
Yeah,
like just selling each other makeup and kitchen.
exactly. We're not talking about anything important over
Yeah,
here.
no, we're
That's
not.
the exact
Yeah,
idea.
There's no anarchists here.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I had something in mind too, like a just served cold type thing too, where it's like leftovers, and it's just what I mean. That's kind of where my head was going with it, but maybe I read into it.
No, I love that. And actually, that was kind of one of the concepts we talked about, having a Tupperware party for a video and opening it up, and there's all kinds of crazy ass shit inside the Tupperware.
Yeah,
Nice.
So you're on to that,
yeah. It's
Do
just
it.
like they say dish best served cold or whatever. How
Yeah,
the saying
revenge is the
goes or
dish
whatever.
best
Yeah,
served cold.
yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking in my
Absolutely.
mind. Like,
No, that's great.
because that's what you use
a,
Tupperware for, right? Is you
Yeah.
put the shit in the fridge and.
I mean, that's
Let it go
such
bad.
a
and then
Love it.
I open it and say I'll never fucking eat that again. I don't
See,
do leftovers.
Yeah.
I would like to see like the Tupperware ripped open and there is the severed tongue right there, and then just the smiles with the blood dripping. Like, nobody's saying anything. They're just smiling.
Now we're in Mod's fantasy land.
yeah. Tupperware party. Let's
We're
fucking
getting
go.
more metal by the second over here.
yes, absolutely.
Welcome to the show. First time.
Well, yeah, first time here. Nah. All right, cool. So let's talk about the new album.
Yeah. Where to
Yeah,
begin?
man.
Where to begin?
So
Well-
it's called. Can I say what it's called?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's called
Yes.
Minnow.
Minnow.
Okay.
Yep. Another kind of reference to sort of just growing up with generational trauma, being kind of like a small baby fish in a super, super scary world. So there's a lot of songs that resonate about that, generational trauma, but it's not all about that. There's songs about like, when we had that chemical spill in Muskegon, and just life in general. But I think it was the evolution of sound. It was definitely like the next step from the EP. I'm really proud of it. I am so excited for it to drop. It's felt like it's taken forever, which was completely a normal part of the process, with like delays, even with like vinyl being pressed. I mean, that's like a really long process,
Yeah.
And that is also just a bucket list thing for me, because I've never had a vinyl release. Like, all these years I've been a musician, so that feels like really significant, and I'm really excited about it. But yeah, it felt like it took a really long time. I think it's really worth it. I think that we worked really hard on those new tunes, and Addison did an amazing job recording them. Very pumped. And I know we were going to preview one, and I'm like, I don't know, you might have to tee that up, but I don't know if you have the ability to do
Which
that off the
which
cuff.
one are we gonna listen to? Are we gonna listen to one today?
I don't know if you guys were going to preview.
I would love to. I'd love
yeah.
to hear something new.
We-
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can do it. All you got to do is email it to me or
the new
whatever.
Bitch Ass Energy was
me to-
the
do
one
you want me
that
to
we
send
were
it over to
thinking.
you?
Yeah, send it to me.
I can
if you
keep chatting in the meantime too
Yeah.
while we tee that up, because I know that we've got new stuff that we kind of want to keep under wraps, like the new songs that people haven't heard before.
Sure.
But because we've already released that one, we thought that would be fun, to hear kind of what that new sound is like. So
Yeah.
it's like, obviously still a familiar song from the EP, but it's got like that new weight to it, with the bass and being a 3-piece.
A little
And-
compare and contrast.
Yeah, and a little extra sass, I think. I know before you were talking about how there's like a little something for everybody to connect with, and Bitch Ass Energy is one of those songs that has definitely been a requested song. I remember I was really excited one day when I woke up and there was this French like noise rock show that featured that like after the EP was released. And I think we were talking about, I can't remember if we were talking about that before, but it was just funny because I couldn't understand what they were saying. My uncle is French, and I was like, can you translate this for me? And he was like, oh, yeah, they were just talking about, how it's 2 women and it's good. And it was just funny to hear them say, le bitch ass energy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah. Comment ça me saoule la bitch ass energy.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's exactly how it was for me listening to it. But I'm like sitting there, yeah. But, my bestie sent me a message the other day because she was on the treadmill working out. And she's like, I had a really bad day. Like, I need to listen to that song. And so that one's been one that I think, people have connected with. And,
Nice.
It's just all about having a bad day. So we can preview that one
Sure.
once we get it all set. But
Cool.
we had a great time. Like I said, Addison did an amazing job making sure that all those pieces that we recorded, you know, went into it. And then we got our order all set and got things in to Learning Curve, which I can take a second too. If did you have that or
What's that? I'm getting it
You
queued up
getting
so
it?
I can
Okay.
send you the
Okay.
file.
Okay, cool.
while we're waiting for that, I don't know if you want to chat briefly about Learning Curve, because
Yeah, whatever you want to talk about. I do want to talk about some. I know Nick and I really enjoy listening to the writing process as well. So
Yeah.
I'd like to dive into a little bit of that as well.
sure,
But
absolutely.
yeah, if you want to speak about Learning Curve, go ahead.
Sure. I'll just mention, because obviously, the way that we did things was deeply impacted by, Reiner saying, yeah, I want to put this out, which was super exciting. I mean,
Did you get that in front of him? Sorry to interrupt, but did you like, hey, check this out, or did he discover it? Obviously, I know there's some connection with the Bronson Arm fellas too.
I went right up to the door and knocked.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
absolutely. Just marched right up and I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And I sent him
Sent that to me.
the
To Facebook
unreleased.
Messenger.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
sent him the unreleased 5-track EP that no one's heard.
Okay.
That was us as a 3-piece. And he was like, yeah, this is really cool. I totally want to put this out. And, his roster and his history is pretty amazing. So I was really pumped. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, they've had right now on the label, there's USA Nails releases. They did a Part Chimp album. There's been so many great bands over the years and currently great bands, which Bronson Arm and Something Is Waiting is on there as well. But if for anybody that doesn't know, they're a great noise rock label out of the Minneapolis area with a long history. So I think it was back in the 2000s, and it might have come about from college radio. But Reiner Franz is the owner, so we really appreciate him, and we're excited about putting this out with them.
Where are they based out of? Learning Curve?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, this song was definitely a popular one from the EP. So it was a no-brainer to re-record it because we were just trying to figure out which ones we were going to do and which ones we were
So
going to leave
heavy.
behind. It's
Oh, yeah.
sassy.
Did that come through okay for you, Jay?
Yeah, I got it. I've just got to now with all the everything's a double check and a triple check now, and you got to do all these different ways to get into Facebook and your Messenger and all this, even though it says keep me signed in and remember this computer.
Two-party
It never
authentication.
keeps me signed in or remembers my computer.
Yeah.
So
Same with my Word. I don't know what's going on with it. I paid for the Microsoft Office, and then I was like, I'm not paying for this shit anymore. Why would I pay for this? I'm not running a business. I don't need that much
Right.
coverage of I just need Word document.
right.
Every third day, whatever, it'll just be like you need to sign in, and it'll either ask me for my PIN number via my OS,
Right.
or it'll ask me what my email account is, and then ask me for the PIN number. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I
Come
was
on,
one of the-
Microsoft.
I think they want me to buy it again. They're
Little
like,
do they know you're not even in it for the word processing. You're just in it for the paperclip guy. Be
Yeah,
honest. You got the
Clippy.
old version.
That's
Clippy.
the original AI is Clippy.
I love it. So before we get into this track, Jay,
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to ask Chantal, can you speak to the cover art real quick about the photographs and say what you want about either who did it or the artwork itself here? Because it's a departure from the Tupperware Party EP, somewhat.
Yeah. That's actually a picture of my daughter that I took
Okay.
swimming out in the White Cloud area with a cat mask on.
Mm.
And it was funny because she was kind of eerie and partially under the water. The sun was setting.
Yeah.
And we were having a really hard time thinking about what the album art was going to be.
Mhm.
And there was a moment where it was a random picture that I had taken without even considering it for that.
Okay.
And then I just started thinking about everything, that the record is about. And it was like, I suppose this picture really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Kind of navigating the world as a young girl
Mhm.
and feeling, maybe masked at times.
Mm-hmm. Loved it.
Yep, it just seemed perfect.
Was the title of the album already set in place?
Yes.
Okay, so
Because Minnow technically was the first song that we wrote as a 3-piece. And I felt like it was a banger off if I may say so myself.
That's a ripper.
I was like, this song is cool. Yeah. And we really wanted to rock with that for the theme. So that was
Okay.
the thought behind it.
so your own work and your daughter, and what river is this
It's actually Diamond Lake
or lake? Where's
Yeah.
that?
in White Cloud, Newaygo area.
Okay, all right.
It's beautiful. There's freshwater jellyfish.
Really?
What?
Yeah, man.
That's a thing?
I didn't know it was a thing either. And the crazy thing is they can't sting you,
All right.
but they only live in extremely clean water.
They
I
can
thought
just,
it was a joke at first. I had to look it up. I'm like, oh my gosh,
No
this is
kidding.
real. Yeah.
They don't physically sting you. They just use their words to.
They just berate you. They're like, you look terrible in that bathing suit. Get out of here.
You sure about that?
They're emotional non-support jellyfish.
Rude.
You're lucky I can't physically sting you, but you need to lose a couple of lbs.
You're gonna have another beer.
How many
hilarious.
is that? Slushy. Cool. All right, you guys want to listen to this?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if she's popping through. I'm going to try not to blow out your eardrums, but unless you want it like that.
I got a sour taste. I got a callous face. It's just another day. I don't get my way. I never asked for your opinion. I'm not having And I feel bad for anyone in my path. And I feel bad for anyone in my I'm not feeling good. 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 I'm not feeling good.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
That
Thanks for
ruled.
procuring that so quickly, by the way.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forgot to mention that
Yeah,
to you.
that ruled. It didn't lose any of its magic.
Thank you.
I think it gained some.
Awesome.
But kind of how I alluded to earlier, sometimes even when you kind of like demo track a song and like sometimes that's hard to replicate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
it really,
I thought,
we leaned hard on Addison for that because he was like, let's not try to do what we did before better. But let's try to, give this its own space. And we did our thing, obviously, and played the song. But I know you really tried to like make vocals sound a little bit different. We didn't do the same, things for anything that we redid off the EP as far as like, let's repeat that same harmony or, what can we do to make this different? We definitely considered, that as we went into it.
I feel like anytime you re-record something, that's like a snapshot of where you're at in life.
Hmm.
And like I always love the opportunity when I get to work with a band again, because when you work with a band the first time, you're really getting to know each other. And then after we did the EP, and then we worked, because we were in the studio together 3 times, and I really started to understand Chantal's taste, Cam's taste, Derek's taste. I started to learn what they liked so I could execute things more effectively. And so I felt like this really stood on its own 2 feet, because I was like, oh, now, because then like I did some to your vocals, and Chantal's like that's the sound that I like. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I finally figured out the right amount of delay, or it's like using delay instead of reverb to get the sound that she likes. And I was like, okay, now I know that and I can apply that. So, and like the thing I think is funny, like we were rehearsing yesterday and we were playing the songs back on the PA system that Derek had. And I'm just like, there's been such a long amount of time since I've worked on these and listened to these. It's one of those moments where I'm just like, God, this really does sound super cool.
Yeah.
You know, we were over at Chantal's house and she was playing on her big stereo. I was like, I do not remember this sounding this heavy.
Yeah.
I know. I don't
like,
listen to it very often either.
you
And when
know,
I do, it's
But I
like,
just
oh yeah,
like
this
just
is
hearing
cool.
it now. I'm like, this actually like I was like proud of myself.
You should
You-
be, dude.
you
It
should-
sounds
you should
fucking
be
awesome,
proud.
dude. It sounds great. It's heavy. It's big. It's in your face.
Yeah.
The bass sits perfect in there.
know?
You can definitely tell the difference when there is bass too. It just gives
yeah.
it that extra. Just,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I love the end there when it's like da 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 da, and there's the da 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 da, all the counter melodies. That
Yeah.
was really where Derek shined on the writing, and it feels sassier with those, and it's you know, it's more complex. It's definitely got some layers.
I feel like the magic of having a demo being captured later on a second or a third recording is a testament to how good the song actually is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
Like-
good way to look at it.
That
Like,
is a very
yeah.
cool way of looking at
Like,
it. I like that.
It's nice to have it immediately, like, oh man, I finally got this thing out. But then
Yeah.
you're gonna revisit it 2-3 years later, whatever, however long
Yeah.
it's been, you know, like come back to it and listen to it. If you don't have that same energy toward it, then maybe you were just happy to get a thing out. But if you do have that same energy toward it and you're excited about it, it's like, let's go, fam. Let's get this out here
Absolutely.
again. Let's kick it
Yeah.
up a notch.
Yeah.
So
I love that perspective. It's kind of like if you imagine, like, you know, not comparing to some kind of amazing, you know, well-known actor, but it's like a headshot, you know, from a well-known actor in their 20s or something, and then, you know, you look at this body of work later on developing into what it was then, but it just wasn't as refined. So I like the idea that, like, the song was good. Now we really see its full potential.
yeah.
It's a
You
cool
want-
way to look
You
at
want
it.
your songs to be Paul Rudd all the time.
Can't say I would complain.
I know that you know, I'll go back and listen to some old demos or something I've done a long time ago, or even, you know, even the old Infinite stuff. I'm like, man, this could be so much better now, you know.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's awesome to do, and sometimes it's better just to leave it alone. But I think you guys accomplished something great here with this song, especially compared to the other, because I thought the other one was so great.
Yeah.
That's all I
you.
was afraid of. Not that I was saying, not that I
Yeah.
thought it would be any less than, but sometimes if you just don't, like I said, if you don't capture that magic, you have that certain vibe, that certain feel, sometimes that is hard to replicate.
Yeah.
Because you almost overanalyze it because you said, I've been here before.
Right.
So,
That's
oh,
where
I
come
can
in
add
and go,
this, that. Yeah, you know what I mean? Oh, we
It's
could
like-
add 12 harmonies to this. We could
Yeah.
add, you know what I mean? Well, guitar solo, this, that, and the other thing. And you're like,
Right.
no, that's not necessary. Let's just kind of keep it to what it was and have the song, like Nick said,
Yeah.
speak for itself and,
Yeah.
you know, continue that energy. So,
Because I
But-
feel like I'm a vibe navigator. When I'm working with a band, I'm a vibe navigator. I'm like, that's cool. Because I'm just objectively listening to it.
you got any interesting moments from the studio that we want to talk about?
Oh man, there was there was always interesting moments. I'm trying to think of. if
Oh,
we
I
have
can,
some-
I can. This one just stands out to me. Is just a tribute to your stamina. So we had 2 days booked to do all like the however many songs you guys brought to Cold War.
Yeah.
And then we got to that time where I'm like, we could just keep going, so we don't have to come back tomorrow and rap, or we could, you know, pause here and then pick up tomorrow because we were ready to do vocals.
Yeah.
And because I do a 10-hour chunk, like that's
Hmm.
my default for tracking. And then we did 10 to 1. So we were out of there like at like 1:30 or something like that. And you
Damn.
finished vocals, and I was just like, you got into this pocket, and like we're going through all of this, and we're all hanging on by a thread. And she's like, "What'd you guys think about that? Is that cool?" We're like, "No, that's sick as fuck." You know, I'm gonna. And then like the other thing was kind of cool too is, I felt like this time around you were really starting to like figure out what you liked, so you're a lot more critical and be like, you know, I can do this part better, or like I want to audition and hear what if I do this with my voice here. I felt like that
Yeah.
kind of you did a little bit more of that versus like when we did the was it the Yarn Horse EP?
Yeah.
Where it's just like it was
The
kind of a
vocals
getting
have
it out.
evolved.
Yeah.
I genuinely, not even trying to pat myself on the back or anything, but I feel like I sing these songs better live than I do on the record now
Yeah.
because of that. You know, they've been evolving. I think you're right about that studio session. I will not name the band who it was, but last night I was watching a band whose record I thought was okay, like not exactly my favorite. I wouldn't trash or anything like that, but I was like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. And then I saw a clip of them live, and I was like, oh, man, this doesn't sound so hot. No shade really to anybody that's had a bad show because I understand that, but I don't think that was the case.
You can say it, Tiny Tree.
It definitely wasn't Tiny Tree. It wasn't a band that we know from around here. It wasn't even a band from Michigan. I'll just say that right now, straight up. Just somebody that I was watching. And my only point is not to drag somebody down, you know, like, but it is that don't you love it when you go and you see somebody and they sound better live than the record?
Oh yeah.
So like I definitely was figuring things out then. And I feel like there's times where I listen back to this and I'm like, I sing that so much better now. And it kind of makes me like bummed out in a way because I'm like, I really got that figured out. But then I'm glad that when people maybe come see us live, they'll be like, oh, this sounds better than the record. I hope that's what
Yeah.
happens, you know?
Yeah, it's always hard after you're like, the song's done, vocal pattern's done, but you still have to play it 1,000 times before you're really like, okay,
Right.
this is kind of where it's at. You know, I know we've already
Absolutely.
recorded it once or twice now,
Yeah.
but, you know, all those little nuances of, oh, just this little slide feels a little bit better and it sounds a little cooler when I do this, or maybe just change this note one little bit, but we've already recorded it, so I can't really do
Yeah.
that. But there's
100%.
just all little things
We
you
just-
figure
we
out
just
as you
switched-
play it and play it
Yeah.
and play it. You
What
know,
makes a
We
live
just
show special. you
tweaked
know?
apart last night.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, that's right. Yeah, just a shift in feel. Me and Chantal, just working with a different drummer and what the energy that Derek brought to the table, and we're like, we both looked at each other like, okay, that part's really tough. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
it was
for
just
sure.
the littlest thing. It's wild how that can make such a big difference.
So fill us in on the information about Minnow, then. Just give us the whole rundown. We got a couple notes here. Also, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's 11 tracks. Theme is, like we were talking about, kind of emerging from, dark waters, I guess, getting through it. And I think we have a pretty good blend of like some higher BPM stuff in there, some groove. It's totally an evolution of, songwriting, even though there are some of those redone tracks from the EP on there. I think it covers some new ground and maybe, transitions a little bit like you were talking about from more of a punk sound into like a little bit more complexity, a little bit more, maybe some more grunge. I don't know. What do you think about evolution sound wise?
It's so weird. I feel like I look at it so differently. It has a very like 90s aesthetic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I was
that
getting
even
that.
with the vocal patterns,
Yeah.
I could like hear it almost in that Soundgarden, like that kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
vocal catchiness and just the power of the vocals too.
Yeah.
Just the oomph of the vocals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was trying to like pin down your voice to somebody else's that maybe I could compare it to and give a name, but I couldn't think of an appropriate name. I don't know if Courtney Love is, because you have a little bit of that fry on the end where you can carry out a note really long, which is impressive enough, but then you can kind of curl it into a little bit like it's not cracking or breaking, but you can put some fry on the very end of it. Like,
Yeah.
how can it go that long and be that powerful and then add some more to it on the end of
Yeah.
it? So
Thank you for that. I
it's
get
great.
that though. It's kind of funny. Curran, I hope I'm saying his name right. Our PR guy from Learning Curve, who has been so amazing to work with, and hearing their feedback is so freaking cool. Just to hear like what they say. And one of his initial things was, "Oh, this sounds like a combo of Suicidal Tendencies, Voivod, and Hole." And I was
Okay.
like, and I had said, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense because my influences are like, Anthrax and DRI and Babes in Toyland, like those were there, and a lot of mathy stuff too.
Sure.
That's 2000 post-hardcore type stuff. But yeah, I've gotten that before, and I get that, so I take it all like to heart in a really good way, and I love those references. I think it feels like that. I'm glad it does.
is there a? I'm sorry, Jay.
No, go ahead,
I
buddy.
was just gonna ask: is there a vocalist in particular that you would say kind of model yourself after, or you're like, oh, that is the voice that I can do, so I kind of do sound like that person? Are there a couple of names that you're?
There are so many vocalists that I
influential.
absolutely love. I mean, I love, many 90s singers. The singer of Babes in Toyland is an absolute favorite. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to Shrine before.
No, it doesn't sound
You would,
familiar.
you guys both would dig them. You would dig them. Their singer um is now I'm trying to remember. I don't want to get her name wrong because it's been some years since I have remembered it. And I'm like, she is actually an actress now, and is older. They're incredible. They're from California, kind of a metally, really just a metal band. And her vocals blew me away. And they were way more metally than anything I was listening to in the 90s. I was listening to a lot of punk, grunge, Riot Girl stuff. But she had this really like powerful belt, and I respected her so much as a singer. And now looking back, and listening to the record that I love so much, which is Psycha,
Hmm.
I listened to those vocals and I'm like, oh, I think this influenced me more than I realized. Like I listen to that now and I'm like, hell yeah. And I bow down to her. I think she's awesome. So she's somebody that comes to mind. Even though I can't remember her name right now, which is terrible. I usually do remember, but I'm a little bit ADHD, so you never know what you're gonna get from me. She's incredible though. I would definitely say check it out. Absolute banger of a band too. Like just a bunch of really like ripping riffs, and like they're so cool. I think you guys both would really dig them.
I'll check them out.
Yeah.
The one I was just gonna make a little note that like I feel like your music, say you had like a different singer in the band and then you screamed over it, wouldn't have the impact of like your actual singing vocal. I think your singing vocal fits what you do perfectly. I
Thank
mean,
you.
it is you and it is your style, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode. But I just think that is like the one thing that really makes the band stand out is your
Thank you.
vocal patterns and the way your voice is, because it has a little bit of that rasp, a little bit of that punk rock, but it's still very clean and catchy, and I just really like it.
Thank you.
Great
I
job.
appreciate that so much.
So here you guys recorded a music video.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was super
And-
cool.
And that's going to be your first single that will be out?
Yes, and by the time this podcast released, we'll be getting ready to drop our second single. But that first one that you're going to hear is going to be Urgency, and we had an awesome time. Worked with Spencer Swenson, who's a part of 640 Films. He's got his own film company. He was great to work with. Him and his buddy Parker, another filmmaker from that bunch. And we worked at an old historic school in Port Sheldon called District 5 Schoolhouse.
Just like the one I went to.
Yeah. Back in the day. It was really cool. We did like a whole like old schoolhouse like ghost concept. So I think it's going to be fun.
Nice.
Really looking forward to. So at the time that we're recording this is going to be just a mere matter of weeks before the single drops. And we're going to have kind of a 3-month campaign. So we're going to have 3 videos drop, and then we'll
cool.
have the record be, I believe, up for pre-order at the end of that, if I'm not mistaken. But everything will officially drop on May 2nd.
Cool.
Yeah, and vinyl should be available at that time.
Is that a Friday?
Good question. I do not know.
Because I heard this, and I could be wrong, but just like studying different music stuff or whatever, I know people drop their music on different days, but I was led to believe that it's always good to still drop it on Friday.
Yeah, makes
because
sense.
Friday is now the day that all the new releases come out. It used to be like Tuesday, but now
Yeah,
it's Friday.
Okay.
So if you drop your music on a Friday, you're more like on a Spotify playlist, more apt to be able to get into one of the new music playlists or something like that, because it's all like you would think it would be the opposite because everybody's dropping, so you want to be singled out or whatever, but you almost kind of want to drop on a Friday because that's when new music is expected, and that's when people are looking for new music, so then your music could show up on the day that all the new music, and that's the reason why I asked.
Yeah.
So I was just,
That is a really
was-
good question.
It
Yeah.
is a Friday.
Oh,
Okay.
it is
Cool.
a Friday.
then that worked.
Oh,
So-
sweet.
The big guys over at the label chose that one, not me, but that's
Okay,
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. They know what they're doing.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I just heard that. So when I hear people say, "Oh, we're releasing on Wednesday or Tuesday," I'm just kind of like, "Well, I understand why," but then, and obviously, if that information is true, I don't know if it is, but it does make sense to me. Like,
Sure.
everybody's looking for new music on Friday. So, but yeah, so this, you said you're gonna have 3 music videos. You
Yes,
said?
3 music videos.
You
we are
have one.
dropping.
You filmed the one already for Urgency.
Yep, and
and
we
you
have another one
All right, go ahead.
coming out a month later. That one's going to be for a track called Dust Collector. And a friend of ours did that with a label, so it's kind of got a cool concept. And then our third one, we're actually getting ready to film shortly. That's going to be for Big Old Tree, which is really, obviously one that was released on the EP that
That's
we went
about
back
Addison.
and recorded. Which is funny because it's totally a play on words of bigotry, which definitely is not Addison.
No,
But yeah,
no.
if we're talking about, height, for sure. Except, how tall are you, dude? Are you 6'4"?
6'4", 6'5".
6'4", 6'5", okay.
Depends on which gas station I'm walking
Yeah.
on.
I just thought it was funny because the whole tiny tree.
Oh, yeah.
The
I'm
big
literally a
old tree.
foot shorter than you. We
Easily,
are
yeah.
absolutely quite a pair. That's
That's
hilarious.
funny stuff.
But yeah, that one's gonna be fun. We're basically doing a live shoot, and it's gonna be black and white practice footage, but we're kind of cutting in people sort of like flipping off the patriarchy because it's obviously like a stance on bodily autonomy. So
Cool.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
looking forward to it.
That's
I love
awesome.
the dissonant riff that you get into in that song. I wanted that song to be 3 times as long as it is, just so I could hear that riff longer.
You know
So-
what? That's my husband's favorite. Ben loves that riff. I
Okay.
know what you're talking about. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. The
Yeah, it's just like, oh, what is she doing there?
Should I
That's-
send over the finished version of that too?
do it. I don't,
'Cause that one's on the EP, right?
Yeah,
Did
I was
we-
gonna say we kind of got the green light to go, which I totally understand.
it's the end of
Reiner
the
was
EP.
like, "Hey, let's save some secret sauce." But if we want to, preview some of the tracks, or we could even just listen to the beginning because I know what riff that Mod's talking about right there.
did we do anything differently in terms of that song on the album? Did we add any length to it, or is it
I don't
just-
think so. Some things were rewritten. We have like this little disco part in there that we just recently changed again, but it was kind of like our Blondie moment.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of different stuff at the end, but I think for the most part, it just sounded like a lot beefier.
Good.
It,
It's a monster. That's such a
yeah,
Yeah.
way beefier.
Love it.
Maybe a smidge faster. I don't know.
it wouldn't
Still
surprise
really
me.
short though, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
54
Yeah.
seconds on the EP.
Oh,
Wow.
There you go, Jay.
That's even shorter than what I thought. Dang, I thought it was like a minute 20 or something.
Yep, 54 seconds is what it says on the Bandcamp.
It must have gotten a little bit longer. Because that whole middle section, the again.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys want to jam this one?
Yeah.
I think so.
It's
Okay.
only,
The world
only
needs to
1
hear
minute.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's jam it.
It's my birthday. Your new birthday. It's my birthday. Your new birthday. It's my birthday. Your new birthday. And you would like to tell me. 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 Don't you let them tell you how to live your life. They can't control you. Don't you let them tell you how to live your life. They can't control you. It's my birthday. Your new birthday. It's my birthday. Your new birthday.
Yeah. You
Oh,
added
yeah.
a little middle section and some more words in there.
All right, cool. So Big Old Tree. That track was awesome. Sounded great.
Yep.
Thank you.
A
Yeah.
little addition on there made it a little lengthier.
Yeah.
Little
The
gurp.
guitar
Mitch.
sounds like Darren Malachine to me from System, like that riff
Oh,
with
yeah.
your guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
That's
it just
another
has a-
one that we've gotten a few times,
Yeah.
and I think it's for some of the like new metal parts. We've
Sure.
heard that there's a
Yeah.
little bit of NU in the new.
Like this way your
album.
guitar sounds. It just has that. It just has a System of a Down kind of
Some
sound.
new grunge, new post grunge.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
adjectives can we throw at you?
Jeez, yeah. Yeah, like Tonguecutter, and then the adjectives are this long about how
Well,
to describe it.
I know new metal has had a resurgence of sorts, but I don't know that any kind of grunge rock has really made any kind of resurgence. Do y'all feel like Do you hear
I-
any
It's
kind of
fair.
grunge rock at all, or do you not pay attention? Like, it just kind of seems like of all genres, that one was here for a hot minute
Yeah.
and then died off, and then we never really had grunge rock. Even those,
I'm in agreement with that. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of like, what's funny is this is a great time and a great seg to mention Eddie Gabo from a band that definitely takes new metal flavors and rules. I love those guys. But Something is Waiting, another Learning Curve band.
Hmm.
Eddie has a feature. We're not going to listen to it. It's one of the new ones. A track called Antipode on the record that he
Okay.
comes in for vocals and does a guest vocal on. But so their band, definitely has that flavor. He's a huge new metal dude.
Sweet.
But the reason why that pops into my mind is because after we played with them, he messaged me and he said, "You guys are aggressive grunge."
yeah,
And I was like, that is one of the labels I've been searching for.
Yeah.
I'm like, that feels right.
Yes.
yeah.
You know?
Because when you say grunge rock, you immediately go to like Nirvana, and I'm like, no, you're heavier than Nirvana. You're way more pissy. If anything, you're like Bleach Nirvana. If anything,
Yeah.
but you're like really mean, and it doesn't sound like Nirvana. Like I said, Quicksand. That's the kind of grunge rock era I would compare you to. But yeah, there is a feeling of that. But yeah, then listen to that last song. There is that System of a Down flavor too, where your
Yeah.
right hand trigger just almost a grind beat in there. It feels like
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
really fast.
We
so.
get a little bit of that. All those references are really appreciated.
Yeah.
I know they help people to kind of hang on to something, and it means something to me when I hear it. And I'm like, yeah, that was in there somewhere for me. That was an influence. I mean,
Yeah.
It's hard nowadays because people are like, oh, subgenres. But like I've explained on the show before, the reason why we want to use some of these titles is because we want to put it in some kind of box so we can go back and open that box later, right?
course.
That's
Yeah.
the reason why we use subgenres, not because everything is everything now. It's just
Yeah.
hard because you can say, oh, there's this new metal deathcore band, new deathcore. Well, you know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
starts to get so convoluted. You're like, it's just metal at the end of the day.
I saw that clip.
But-
You're so right, though.
Yeah,
Labels
but-
are helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
lot
are
of
helpful. You got the purist out there, the
Yep.
death metal guys. Deathcore is not a genre or what. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like
Crucify me.
look in the mirror and tell yourself that if you have to. I don't know what to fucking tell you.
Well-
They've been playing deathcore for 20 plus years now. It's a genre by now.
It kind of ties
But,
in a texture, like when you say a certain
Yeah.
flavor, it's like, oh, then you can kind of get a picture of like that
Absolutely.
texture. Like
Yeah.
if you add like, oh, it's like, well, it's kind of like a post-hardcore. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
you kind of have an idea because those descriptors are handy.
Yeah, you're like, I had ice cream last night.
Yeah.
What kind? Well, it's all ice cream. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's all
I mean,
dairy.
it's not. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got sherbet and you got pistachio. Like, what the fuck you do have?
Yeah,
I don't.
no, there's a lot of
true.
truth in that.
You
yeah.
know,
No,
so
it's-
Absolutely.
you got to be descriptive, so
Yeah,
you
and-
know if it. And then it's kind of like, is that for me or is it not? But I don't really like to go that way either because Mod has made a point. You kind of just judge each song off of each song or each
Yeah.
band off of each band because
Yeah.
we love death metal, but we could name 42 death metal bands we'd never want to listen to in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where it's just,
And
you
it-
can't just say, oh, I just like death metal because that's not necessarily
If
true
you're
or whatever.
middle
you
ground.
know?
If you're
It's like-
if you're doing a purist approach to your band anymore, you're almost kind of limiting yourself, and it's almost a little bit boring. Like nobody wants to hear rehashed classic rock. Like I don't want to hear a copycat Led Zeppelin.
Right.
I mean, we already had Led Zeppelin, so now you could say that's a main influence for me. But guess what? Oh, I'm actually doing some hip hop in my Led Zeppelin. What?
yeah,
But yeah, that sounds fucking interesting. I want to hear several styles without it being like schizophrenic.
Yeah,
I want it to kind of be cohesive and make sense.
definitely.
Bands that do that, that's fine too. That probably wouldn't be for me personally. And you can get away with it. You can just throw shit at the wall and be like, "This is my band. I do whatever I want," and that's fine too. But I think that's more where listeners' attention spans are anymore. Because as a musician, sometimes we box ourselves in. No, I just play metal. And it's like, nope, listeners don't just listen to metal. They
Yeah.
listen to some metal,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
listen to some rap, and they listen to some jazz. And if you can make all of those things cohesive in an album, now you're talking. Now
Right.
people are really interested in like, oh man, I love this band. They do this metal thing, and then they go into the saxophone thing, and then they drop a fucking R&B rap. Just-
Yeah.
Sounds like you're talking about Candiria, bro.
Or,
yeah,
or Sleep
I
Token.
mean, if
Yeah.
you do it well, like,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that just comes into is just like be yourself.
Yeah.
Because then like that's what's gonna make you, and that's one thing I appreciate about Chantal is it's like I don't want to come in and interfere what she does. 'Cause, like what she does musically is what made this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think it's just and I think it's a testament to the fact that like Learning Curve was willing to take a gamble on Tonguecutter. Like you being your authentic self is what got you here.
right.
So like especially like making records with people, I was like do you It's like if you think that's cool, then you should do it because like authenticity is what connects with people.
Yeah, for sure.
Amen.
And people can kind of see through that
Yeah.
too if you're not being
Yeah.
Yeah.
authentic, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
It does feel a little scary sometimes since we're talking about classical stuff with Candiria. I can testify that like if you're getting ready to pull out a flute, you're like, is this cornball? Is this
Yeah.
gonna be
Oh, yes.
corny? Like,
Right.
It's you though, right? I
but it
mean,
ends up working for us. You know, we don't overuse it.
Yeah,
but
I know if I went home to write riffs like Jay, that would be an immediate fail, fall on my face. Like I can't do that. First of all, I don't have the skill ceiling or floor. I'm like I'm not trying to write Jay riffs. So if I go home and pick up my guitar, I'm just gonna play what I can play and just get that attitude out. Like it would be a similar attitude, but technically it would be like, no, it's not
Yeah.
the same. But it would have my self in it.
yeah,
So I could
I
show
can't
it to
do
Jay.
what Jay does either.
Yeah, I could show it to Jay and be like, can you enhance this through your skill set? And you'd be like, I'll fuck with it, you know? But yeah,
Yeah.
you got to be yourself. I'm not going to go home and try to write riffs that are outside of my skill set or imitating somebody else. It would just be,
For sure.
it would be, you know, you'd be able to call that out immediately. Like you're trying to be something that you're not. Cause I can tell you that right now. Like if I was working with Addison, he might be able to call me out and say, I can tell you're trying to play something that isn't you because it's outside of your skill set, and you're trying to play something that's harder than what you can play. Go home, think about your life, right?
Go sit in
Reevaluate
the
the whole
corner.
fucking thing.
Write riffs that you can actually play without wasting each other's time here.
It's the energy, man. It's, you know, like that's one thing. It's like I feel like sometimes I'm a super hippie where it's like that's where, you know, Chantal and I can click and be nerdy. It's just like you can literally just feel the energy emanating from the other human when it's
Yeah.
authentic and
Yeah.
it feels right.
It's
Yeah.
vibe.
You know, just like think about like when
vibe,
you're
right?
working on, when your music together and it's like so and so's playing guitar and you're like, that take just felt good. There's an energy. It's just like you can just tell and like just let yourself feel that
Yeah.
energy, you know?
I wanted to say something, especially to the two sitting here. Having watched both of your bands in Tiny Tree, Tonguecutter, if listening to it as a 2-piece, but sure it's a 3-piece, also seeing Bronson Arm, those are the bits THV. These bands, when I watch them play, huge inspiration because it makes me feel like, you don't need the 5 or 6-piece band to write good music. You can have one other collaborator or just the person that kind of like helps you get your point across. And it makes me feel like that's what I need to pick up my instrument again. Is just to know that I can do that. I mean, Bronson Arm floored me.
Yeah.
Floored me for how heavy they were as a 2-piece. I was like,
We just had a long
Oh.
conversation about
Yeah.
them last night on the way
Yeah.
home from
Well,
band
I-
practice
I-
about how rad those guys are.
Yeah, they are.
I just want to interject with Lucius Fox. Jesus
Yes.
fucking Christ, dude.
That was also
other one.
that was the point we started with on
Yeah,
the 2
those
pieces because
guys
I was
are
like, you ever
so
seen
sick,
Lucius?
dude.
Fox?
yeah, but
Oh,
I mean,
they
we
were-
listened to one of their tracks and we
Yeah.
got a small snippet, but standing there watching those guys, I'm like, fuck off, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
in a good way. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
awesome dudes too, but like, I was
They
just
had
like,
me going home and listening to like Isis and Pelican and stuff because I
Yep.
hadn't like dug up some of that in a minute, and I was just like, ooh, I kind of feel the need to be like shook from the floor up, you know, instrumentally with just some like heaviness. Like,
Yeah.
the Lucius Fox blows my mind because then again, now we're talking about a skill set where it's
Yeah.
like out of my hands. I'm like, I'm not going to try and replicate that. The Bronson Arm, I was like, ooh, all groove, all day, super heavy tones. And I'm like,
tight drums. That
Yeah, oh my
drummer,
God.
solid.
Garrett's
as
You know what the
fuck,
thing
dude.
about
Ugh.
Garrett is? Because their next record, I tracked it for him. Me and
Yeah.
Blake traded
it gets
time.
released a week after ours, by the way,
Does
on
it?
Learning Curve. Yeah.
Garrett is so hard on himself. You come
Really?
up and he's like, that was the worst. And I was
Oh.
like,
no.
I was like, did you hear the same thing I heard? And so it's
Nah,
like
he's
that's
awesome.
where it's just like because those guys have done some of the stuff themselves, and then I was like, I would love to be involved with a Bronson Arm record, and so
Yeah.
me and Blake traded where I tracked it, and then they had someone else mix it.
They are
Yeah.
the best dudes,
But,
dude. They're
like,
so cool.
It's just like that's where that control comes in. It's like, no, you are good, but
Yeah,
Garrett
well-
is insanely talented.
Yeah.
Well, he's so good. Garrett, if you're hearing this, give yourself a hug right
Exactly.
now.
Do
Like,
it
Be
self-hug.
nice to
yeah,
yourself.
give yourself a smile in the mirror and a thumbs up because, man,
But he has good taste.
Oh.
What he plays,
Well,
he
he's-
has good taste.
he just, so there's the Lucius Fox drummer. I don't know brother's name off the top of my head, but he's amazing. He's all over the kit. And then to follow him up, I was like,
I want to say his name is Paul.
I'm gonna struggle too because
I know we just met him.
I
So-
literally
Jeremy.
just
Jeremy's the one guy, right?
exactly,
Yeah,
and
I
that's who
believe
I
his name
spoke
is
with
Paul.
about
Okay.
Yeah.
stepping in on the fest at the last minute. But
He
they
was
were
amazing.
super-
I was like, I feel bad
He
for
was so
anybody
nice.
following him up. And then this guy Garrett goes on, and he's just pounding the shit out of these
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
drums. And he had
Yeah.
all the right touch, and he was just.
Yeah.
everything
a
was
so
vibe,
tight,
too.
dude.
Yeah.
His drums were
Didn't
so
miss a
tight,
beat.
holding it down because he is the only rhythm section
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously guitar rhythm, but as far as like holding down that beat, obviously that's difficult to do because
Yeah.
it's the two of you, But yeah,
They're a
they
vibe
were
too.
great.
We
Oh,
were
yeah.
just talking about that on the way home last night because, Addison was saying, yeah, I feel like those guys are really headed to big things. And I was like, me too, because they invite everyone in on their sound. Like if you dig noise rock and you like heavy two pieces, you're gonna be like, yeah. But also, even if you don't like those things, you're gonna be intrigued by, who they are, their style, their personalities together. They definitely have like a 360 package kind of thing going, I think, as far as just personality wise even, or the way that they engineer their sound on stage.
Yeah.
So they're gonna pull you in somehow. And yeah, I just got to be in their newest music video.
Oh.
I probably shouldn't say a whole lot more than that, but I had a lot of fun, and when I came home I had a piece of broken sugar glass in my bra, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, hopefully we'll be having those guys on the show pretty soon.
Oh,
because
you have
That's
to.
the one thing.
Sweet,
That's the one
yeah.
thing about
Yeah.
I love about the fest is we get a little blurb with everybody, but
Yep.
Hell
there's
yeah.
definitely a handful of bands, if not all those bands, I'd like to at least get on the show, and
Yeah.
it's like we at
They
least
will be great
we
guests
got a
for you
touch
guys.
point. Hey, my name is Jay. Hey, my
Yeah.
name is Nick. Nice to meet you. Great
Yeah.
set. And then it's like, hey, would you guys? You know what we do? We seen what you do.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
like to come over and
Absolutely.
have
I'm
an
sure they
episode?
would.
So those are definitely guys that I'd love to get on the show.
They'd be great for you
sooner
guys
than
to
I
have
later.
on.
love it, especially because Garrett runs the runoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's asked Iron to play there, but there was one date we couldn't do. But
Yeah, it's a fun spot.
he was just like, you guys were awesome, and it always feels good a little bit,
Yeah.
just 'cause,
You should. Everyone
so.
should subscribe. By the way, to the Runoffs Patreon.
Yep.
It's fabulous. I'm a subscriber for $3 a month. Great for you guys and seeing new bands.
Mm.
You get the live videos sent right to your email.
Sweet.
Just a little plug for him and what he's doing because he does that with his own time, the kindness of his heart. He doesn't make any money off of it, and he does a great job running the Patreon. So everybody go and sub.
Cool.
The last thing I want to say about Bronson Arm is
Sure.
like as I'm watching them as just a two piece, I'm like they don't need one more component.
No,
That's
absolutely.
that's how well they do their thing.
Yeah.
I
For
felt
sure.
like this is music. It doesn't need a bass player. You already got that sound in there. It's really deep and thick, and I didn't feel like they needed a separate vocalist. I was like, no,
No.
he does what he needs to do.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's mostly about the music, and he chimes in with some lyrics, and then he goes back to rocking out hard. I didn't
When they
think
played too, Blake was like, I said something about singing different lyrics all the time. He's like, I forget my own lyrics and I sing different
the
things.
time.
Don't tell anybody. Sorry, I just told everybody. Blake. But we were broing down on that though because I'm liable to sing something different.
Yeah. Same.
You never know. But yeah, he does. The reason why I say that though is because he's great at letting things breathe as well. We have a similar
yeah.
approach. He doesn't sing over the top of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of negative space.
I just felt like your bands, both you guys and them, huge inspiration to me. I was like, so I don't need to do a whole technical metal progressive thing at home in my lab. I don't need like God bless Michael Stelema and Vestigial. I don't need to be that guy. That's music I enjoy, but if I want to get back to like writing music, seeing what that was, like the two-piece bands, I was like, oh, okay, I think that's something that I need to like let marinate
Yeah.
in
Bringing
my
it
mind.
back to basics.
Yeah,
Always a good.
really. Yeah, just
Just rocking, bro.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
write the
Yep.
riff.
And
know?
by the time this comes out, I think that video is going to drop. So
Hell yeah.
everybody will be able to see that.
Super cool. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so before we start running out of time here, let's get back to Tonguecutter.
Yeah.
Bronson Arm,
Bronson
you guys
Arm,
fucking rule.
love you
So-
guys.
so shout out to you guys. But
It's all two-piece territory.
Do you guys want to play a game? Do you want to play?
Yeah, yeah.
You want to play a fishbowl game?
yeah, let's do it.
That
Did you
sounds like
bring
the beginning of a Saw
Oh, yeah.
movie. You want to play a game?
I brought it. I brought
Oh
it.
hell yeah!
Great.
Nice.
We got a
Let's do it.
fishbowl here for Minnow, so
Let's do
we've
it.
got some questions in here to pass around. I
Cool.
figured I'd let you guys go for it. Pick one. Let's let Maud roll first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we always let Maud go first.
I'm the guest of honor here.
Yeah.
You're the resident guinea
Even
pig.
though you're the guest. Is this all one? Okay, it's all one. All right, we have what's the worst gig you've ever played and what made it a disaster?
Ooh. Is that a question just for Mod or anybody in the room?
Oh, do
I
have
didn't
to
know you
answer
were
it
gonna.
too?
Yeah, that's for you, man.
Oh, that's for me.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
for you.
Dude, I love it.
Oh God, let me think about this.
It was
for a
this
minute.
festival like a week ago.
Do you want to think about it? Because I have an answer right off rip for me.
Yeah, go ahead. If you got an answer, I have to think.
All
about
right,
it.
so when Infinite Design first started, we're like shredding in the basement, right? Obviously, you always think you're better than what you are, but like I finally got with Adam, and I'm like, oh, I got a drummer that can kind of play the shit that I want to play, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, man, we are really rocking. We got some great songs or whatever. And our very first show was Sweatfest in Kalamazoo, like one of ones that Luke, because it was Reinventing Yesterday, played, and there was a bunch, like one of Jeremy's bands was there, McClary's bands was there and stuff, and it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, oh man, first time out, we're gonna rip, whatever. We get on stage, right? Set all of our guitars like in front of Adam because that's where they wanted them or whatever. Dude couldn't hear shit. Every song was just a fucking train wreck. We got all off time, and it was so frustrating because like we were pretty dialed. And then I literally a week later after that we played Cuties and played flawlessly. It was like perfect because you could hear everything.
Man.
But at that show you couldn't hear anything. We just all walked away from like, fuck man, we had that thing to make our first impression, and we just
worst
really,
feeling ever.
dude, we just dropped the ball so hard on that. I was like, oh, that fucking sucked. But
Worst
yes,
feeling
that was
ever.
the worst show
Oh my
ever.
God.
So I've got one. Should I jump in?
Yeah,
All right.
jump in.
So this one is actually kind of sad, and I don't want it to be a reflection of the members of the band I was in at the time, because it's not. But I was in a band called Trigger Betty, and our last show, we didn't know it was our last show, but
This is already starting off.
Well, we know how this goes.
but you'll know why, kind of like. So we had a show booked with, I don't know what other bands, but it was at the Fruitport Library, and it was a fairly reliable venue for people to turn out, But
Loved seeing shows there.
we were like the last band to play, and I'm telling you, other than maybe say a couple of my girlfriend and her sister and her cousin, nobody down in the basement. So it's just a lonely little environment where you're basically practicing and playing for yourselves. But it was so heartbreaking, and I was like, man, we've been doing this for years, and we've had like plenty of better shows, and people would at least hang out, and like friends would come out, or nobody fucking down there. And I'm like, I called up Kevin like a couple days later, and I'm like, I think I'm ready to be done, man. Like we meet once or twice a week, and we're not making any progress, and I don't know where to go with this, and I just feel like, honestly, like there's better ways to spend my time, like for the self-fulfillment factor. So yeah, worst show is when you're like playing in front of nobody.
Ugh,
like, I mean, you
that
play
is
great
brutal.
and enjoy it and love it. And I got a picture of it, and the picture's great. Like whoever, probably my girl at the time took the picture, and I'm like, I love that picture, but I'm sad because I remember
Yeah.
nobody in the room, and it's not
Yeah.
like we were a bad band that was like, oh god, those guys are awful. It's just one of those days where nobody came out,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
nobody
man.
wanted to go to a show that day.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know why.
brutal.
Yeah, so that was probably the worst one for me. I can think
Been
of a
there.
few bad moments, but a whole show, nobody down there. Sad.
Yeah, that's disheartening, especially if you played in front of a lot of people before and
Yeah.
got good reception, and you're like, here
Oh, yeah.
we are, still trying to get people to come to a show.
That
you
does
know?
feel brutal.
Yeah,
Dang it.
nobody down there.
Do you want to pick a new one? Maybe we
Yeah.
should pick a new one, and then we'll both answer that one, or
Okay.
we
Yeah,
could
that's
pick
cool.
different ones.
What's the most bizarre request you've ever gotten from a fan?
That's a perfect question for you.
If it,
Because this might just go right to NC-17 territory.
Patreon only
Yeah.
on this answer.
Man, well, the first thing that came to mind was my brother and I doing EFIS. People would always be like, not always, but like, you guys got any songs with vocals?
Did you hear any?
And then I remember one time there's a song, what the fuck song is it? Ding, 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 ding. I can't think who it was, but I used to just like sing the words, and then all I just say was like, I remember Noah Bloomquist said that sarcastically because he knew it was a pet peeve of mine. And the whole time I was saying, "Fuck you, Noah." Fuck you, Noah." I don't know. That is like a bizarre request from a fan. I've always said it's just like the kind of music that I have found myself playing doesn't really bring women out that want to
Yeah,
see me play,
right.
or I don't have. It's like people are like, "Do you have groupies?" I was like, "No, that's not a thing."
You're like, that's a wives' tale,
Yeah,
man.
it's just
That
like-
shit ain't.
Maybe if I was in a butt rock cover band,
Yeah,
then I would,
yeah,
or a
maybe.
country band.
Right.
You know what's
But-
funny is because you couldn't think of a bizarre request.
Do you
and
have one?
I actually I gotta say this now because I was gonna pick a new one, but this is funny as heck. So many moons ago, I was just telling Ben this story because we went to the Playland at the mall, and yes, it ties into that. I'll keep it short. Many moons ago, we played a pretty cool show at the Crow's Nest in Leadington as Indrid. Threw down, we played that show with If He Dies, He Dies. At the end of the night, me, Brent, Dane are all sitting up at the bar having a drink together. And this kid comes up to me and he's like, I love you guys, man. You guys were awesome. And he takes off he's got this leather cuff, and it's like one of those fake leather cuffs, and it's got like the back with like the white nylon, and it's just absolutely drenched in like dirty skin and like dripping with sweat, right? I mean, this thing is just like absolutely like drip, drip, drip.
Fermented.
Fermented. So he pulls it off, and he's probably like 18, 19 at the time. You know, I'm in my 20s. He pulls it off, and he's like, I want you to have this, man. And Dane's sitting next to me, and I'm like, oh, bro, thank you. But dude, please, you know, no worries. Keep your bracelet, you know? And Dane's like, Shani, where's your manners at? He's like, put that on. Put that on right now. And I'm like,
Yeah, Dane.
Oh my god.
I hope
I
that
could
the
just
guy
see him doing that.
I hope the guy that did this, by the way, if he's listening, I just want to say it was actually awesome because he loved our band. But of course it was dripping with sweat and stuff. So I put it on and I'm like, you know, I put it on and I look over at Dane, you know, and I'm like, oh man. So of course, you know, ASAP, you know, I'm taking this off. I stick it in like a jewelry box somewhere. It's still in my house somewhere.
Nice.
Here's the funny part. Literally 10 years later, I'm sitting at the Playland at the mall in Norton Shores.
Okay.
And my son's running around. He's like probably like 5 or something like that. And this guy comes and he sits next to me. He's got a kid running around. He's on his phone. He's looking up at me. I'm looking at him. We exchange looks a couple times. I look at him again. I'm like, did you used to go to shows back in the day? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, were you at a show in Ludington at the Crow's Nest for like Injured If He Dies, He Dies? And he was like, yep. And it was him. And I was like,
oh, no way.
and I was like, okay. We just didn't talk. It was like this awkward exchange. It's like,
you
did you give me?
slide in the bracelet.
Yeah,
I know.
pull it out of your
I had to
pocket and
mention
just
that
have it on
because-
you. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I've been meaning to get this
Yeah.
back to
Right.
you.
I want you to have this.
So that was probably the strangest request I ever had, was to put on a you know, sweaty
Oh.
bracelet from a fan. But really, if you look at it, it's kind of sweet. But it was a little
amazing.
wacky.
Real quick before we pull another one, I wanted to say this before I forget. When we did the contest for the Heart on Your Sleeve tickets or whatever,
Yeah.
did you see that comment I tagged you in?
I might have missed it.
Because somebody was like, "Hey, dude, look, it's that cool ass chick that was playing the flute the other night."
Oh, I missed it. That's hilarious.
I was like, I gotta tag Chantal in this because it was funny as fuck.
I
It
didn't
was-
see that. Thank you to that person.
It's a flute chick.
Yeah. I was just like cracking up because he like
That's
tagged his
hilarious.
buddy. He's like, "Hey, look, it's that cool ass chick playing the flute the other night."
That's awesome. I'll take it.
Like
Thank
it
you.
just randomly came up on his feed and shit. I was
On
like,
your
That's hilarious.
tombstone will be
Funny.
that comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we getting close to running out of time?
Yeah, we're getting there.
I got
so.
it.
Okay, because we
hour.
have one more little funny thing.
Okay, cool.
If we want to, you know, because I mean the fishbowl game. Oh, actually, I'm gonna leave that out. This is fun, but
Oh, here's the other one.
Minnow.
Souvenir.
With
I'll
the-
keep
with
it
the
as my
fish
souvenir.
theme.
You want it?
We brought one more. You can leave it. We
Minnow.
brought one more thing.
okay.
So because of the fish theme, I thought it would be fun, and not trying to target you, Maude, but you are
God.
the chef.
I'm resident chef.
So you were talking about, you know, getting gear and loving to get gear,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give you a chance to
Swag.
win a tongue cutter T-shirt for each of you and a vinyl to give away when it
alright.
comes out on the show.
Sweet.
But you do have to eat some sardines.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, I was hoping that was going to be the response.
Oh, no.
Is he going to do it for Metal Maniacs?
Do they have bones in it? Is it crunchy?
I'm going to tell you, I don't even think that
I-
they're really that fancy because
I feel like Jay would be offended if I even opened that can in
Yeah, I
his
was gonna
house.
say that might.
That smell might stay in here forever.
Yeah.
Like, do one of you guys need to put deodorant on?
So-
No, we opened a can of sardines.
Okay, so
I'll-
I love this idea. Let's finish the last few questions and then we'll close it out.
You want to like
on-
take the whole operation outside and get it on?
No,
like, some
no.
Gorilla
No,
film?
that's fine. I just like
it won't be too bad when
yeah.
you open it.
I
It'll
mean,
be bad for you in your mouth.
If you throw up, at least there's a fishbowl right there. I mean, fuck,
Have you
dude.
ever eaten a sardine, Chantal?
I have
Alright.
tried them.
So
It's not
real,
my jam.
real quick before we move on. When I was in the sim and we got around to working with some oysters, the chef said, now back in the day, we used to make everybody try oyster. We used to make them put it in their mouth and eat the oyster or whatever. He said, I'm not going to do that. You don't have to eat the oyster raw. It's not for everybody. And I was like, thank God. And I'm like one of 2 people in the room who wouldn't put the raw oyster in my mouth because I'm like, I don't eat raw food. It's not what I do. I don't eat sushi. I don't eat raw anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much like a medium well guy. Crucify me. But
No, I'm with you.
I
I'm
don't-
with you.
I don't like raw food. So that like we did Oysters Casino, so you actually roast them in the oven
Yeah.
with whatever flavor.
Don't worry that they are fully cooked. I'm so sorry to do this to you, but like that was one of the thoughts that popped up in my mind, just being a little devious. I'm diabolical
I
today.
feel like I've maybe had a sardine in my life, so no big, but
My
like,
brother loves these things.
Can I get like I don't have to touch it, do I?
We can get you a fork or something, man.
This is going to go down as the most diabolical episode of
I would just
Metal
love to see the
Maniacs.
camera footage of like his face when he first sees the can sardines. Like,
I know. It's
and then dum dum dum.
so terrible. But
there's like
the good news is I actually have TC shirts in the back of my van right now, so they're going to come out right away.
Hell yeah.
and the other question
And don't
is,
forget, you're doing it for your friend, too. I mean, Jay doesn't even have to do anything.
I was gonna say,
do I have to?
Are you gonna in solidarity? Are you gonna try a little bit?
yeah, I'll try a little bit. I ain't eating one whole one of them motherfuckers.
How big are they?
I don't want to have a
Jesus,
stomach
what are
ache
we-
all
what are we
day.
talking
I don't
about?
even
I don't know how
know.
big.
I don't even know.
Minnow
All right,
size.
All the answers on
let's-
the other side of this. How big is it? What does it smell
That's
like?
what she
All right.
said.
My last question is:
Yeah.
Do I have to chew it, or can I just slurp it down?
Oh my
However
God!
you
You
wanna
could
do
you
it,
could
buddy.
slurp it. You
I'm
can
sure
slurp
they're just
it.
really salty.
Yeah, however you want to get me
Yeah.
a T-shirt. Don't
If I-
no pressure.
If I end up liking these things, though, my wife is gonna come for you.
Would
I'm
that be
so sorry to
fucked
do
up?
this. It like worked with the fish theme, and I was like, just
He
being
just
a little
shows up.
devious.
He shows up to the next pod just munching on them.
I'm
fucking things.
gonna come home with the whole can. In my hand. Hey, babe.
Let
What's
me
it?
read the
All right.
ingredients. Contains fish,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Salt
soy,
and water.
soybean oil, salt, natural smoke flavoring.
Love it.
There you
love it.
go.
So they're cooked.
Yeah, they're cooked.
Okay. Well,
They're cooked.
All right. So let's park that idea just for a second. I love it. I just want to
Gear up
finish
for
up a
it?
couple. I just want to finish up a couple things before we start
Yeah.
to run out of time.
Don't want to forget to
Um,
mention Caterwaul too. if
Yeah,
we can.
that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
one thing I wanted to get to, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the writing process because we didn't get there yet, and I don't want to
Sure.
make it too long because we've gone pretty long now already, and we need to get this on video. So, tell us a little bit about Caterwaul Fest, and then
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Well, to keep it brief, we're just absolutely thrilled. It is a banger of a year. I mean, Addison was like kind of having pants feelings when the roster dropped. He messaged me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Kowloon Wall City, Piss Jeans, Young Widows."
Yeah.
Like it's an amazing year. And it's an amazing effort from Learning Curve, and then Ghost is Clear Records as well. I know is involved in that, but massive 4-day-long fest in Minnesota and Minneapolis. Tons of amazing bands. It's Memorial Day weekend. We're playing on Sunday. Just really honored to be doing it, and we're going to be traveling out there, and so it's a big deal for us for sure, and we're so excited about it. Definitely gearing up for that. That's the main focus right now. Beyond getting the record out there, and then planning some little legs so we can get out there and sell some records. But that's kind of like our main next thing. So
Hell yeah! So that's
Sweet.
kind of what's next then.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Got any new ideas you're writing right now?
We are
There's a
doing a
couple
little
floating
bit
around
of
in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that stuff you're bringing to the table, or you're letting Chantal bring that to the table, and then you're just giving the advice, or how does that look?
To me, like it's just like the way she thinks about riffs is just it's foreign to me. But it's just like I can figure out how to find my place in there.
Okay.
To where it works, where it's
Yeah.
just like Chantal will have this, and I was like, and then I'll start like that one song we were working on last time. It was like we started to I was like, this groove is really nice, so we should probably play that one more time. And then we both, I think, just have very similar instincts,
Mhm.
and so it's just like I kind of follow her lead. I was like, this is like this sound is what drew me to the band.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I like what you said the last
Yeah.
time you were on the show too. It's one of those things where you can step in and you don't have to be the guy. Like
yeah,
you're willing to put in the work
yeah,
to be part of the gang,
yeah,
but you don't have to be the guy. And
Right.
we all love that feeling.
Yeah.
yeah,
you
And I
know.
love collaboration, but I do appreciate, having that feeling there. And I usually will come with like a good chunk, and be like, hey, I had this idea, and then it'll evolve. So I definitely am that person that, any idea pops up, and then a melody pops up for a vocal line or whatever. And I've had a lot of that going on. And since this excitement of releasing this and how complex it was to get here, all I can think about is, okay, it's going to be easier next time. What's the next record look like? Even though it's not quite released yet, we've had an amazing reception and some really great feedback, and I'm excited to do it again. And this time around, maybe, streamline the process.
So when you're
Yeah.
writing, then sitting in the room riffing by yourself, and then you're like, this would fit good with Tonguecutter. I'm bringing this riff
Yeah.
to the table, or are we jamming in the room?
It's
What
a
does
little
your
bit of
process
both.
look like?
I will 100% say, just to give credit where it's due, that on the record, when we did writing between Derek, Cam, and I, like Cam would absolutely come with beats that were great. Derek definitely had cool riff ideas and also, helped open up and explore things I would bring to the table. So definitely a collaborative process, but also, I definitely would bring riffs in that were, fully formed or whatever. And so it's a little bit of everything. And it might be a different vibe this time around as we're writing, like Addison
I
was
almost
saying,
feel like the couple things that we were working on is like my chill grooviness seemed to really complement some of the like intense counting riffs where it's just like where I would lock in with like a drum pattern where I was like kind of split that difference. It's like the way you have vocals that invites every listener into the song. It's like I kind of felt like that one song we were working on last is like we had some nice complementing bits in there that worked really nice, that like the groove made that county riff sound even more intense.
Yeah,
which was
agree.
cool,
for
Nice.
sure.
So I kind of think like there's that the vision I'm getting, like I'm also getting like tonally like some visions on how like we'll have this next record sound. I have a feeling that like once we really get into it, because we had been talking about like, we should do like a writing retreat and just like
just
and
write some songs.
just get after it.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
For
But
sure.
I think that'd be really cool. I think there's gonna be. I'm really curious to see, because like we were both seasoned songwriters and like just mushing together and just be like, no, it's cool. And then like I feel like another thing too is like writing for so much is like you're able to sift through a lot of shit quick, and you're like, that just doesn't cut it there. We need something that's this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
Yeah.
totally. I feel that. It's just like, I kind of feel like this should go like this. And you're like, oh, dude, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're able to kind of skip up to the finish line a little bit quicker.
Yep,
Definitely.
exactly. Well, all right. Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming on
Yeah,
the
thanks for
show.
having
Is there
us.
Thank you
anything
guys
else
for
you want to
having
cover, or I think we kind of went over everything? I could talk to you guys for hours and hours. So
I know it's
I
dangerous.
know. No,
Yeah.
that was amazing. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to the tracks and talk about all
Always.
the stuff we have going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
all right, Nick, it's on you, buddy. You want to whisk
Can you
this
do
one
it?
out?
I just want to say, I'm sure I'm expecting a little crunch in these. I saw a picture of it. It's like the whole fish with an eye and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's fuck's sake.
Let me see it.
I am so sorry.
Oh, no.
I know it's gonna be on my hand. It'll be on my hand for like the rest.
Do you
of
want
my
me to
life.
go get you a utensil or something?
No, I'll
Napkin?
I'll fucking peel my skin off.
All right.
Let's get a.
Is it kind of like tuna?
Just take one bite. That's all you need.
It ain't like that.
Oh,
Fam. It's like
okay.
once you
I
like, I ain't
feel-
gonna like.
As soon as you commit,
I'm highly
entertained.
entertained, and I also am feeling guilt. There's a lot of emotions that I'm experiencing right now.
Oh, it's so.
Let's get it.
Oh my
Is
god.
it on the camera?
It's on camera.
Oh my God.
I was gonna grab like a meaty one, but now I'm like, what's the? I don't.
Oh my god.
You can do it, bro.
I feel like I need to take a picture of this.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Okay, it's like tuna. It's like tuna fish.
I can smell
Okay.
it for sure now.
Okay. Oh.
there you go.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good chef's
Oh,
choice.
yeah.
Chef's choice right there.
A little bit of
God.
mayo
Oh.
on there.
Just get it.
Oh, you did it.
All right, that's tuna fish. There's a
Oh,
lot of
it's-
drama.
Okay.
yeah.
Hey.
Hey, that was a lot of drama. There was no crunch.
I'm eating tuna fish over here.
It basically, you could mash that shit up with some
You wouldn't
mayonnaise, put it on bread, and you're
Yeah.
good to go. Okay.
All right.
All right, well,
Good.
now we know.
All right. Well, thanks.
A lot of drama.
Keep it
for
metal.
nothing.
Peace out. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.